my ground, I hold the light. Words like arrows in the night. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. They throw their stones, but I don't fall. Their whispers crumble against my call. I see the doubt, but I see it all. A mountain stands where they see a wall. Claws in the sand, eyes to the sky. Every word a battle cry. Strength and faith I can't deny. This lion lives and lions don't die. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. The fire of the restoration burns with holy strength from the Savior's arm. Standing tall in the light, called now for the fight. The lions of Judah and Ephraim unite. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. I roar like thunder, my heart's aflame. Truth my armor, you'll know my name. Through the shadows I stake my claim. This lion's pride will never be tame. I stand my ground, I hold the light. Words like arrows in the night. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. They throw their stones, but I don't fall. Their whispers crumble against my call. I see the doubt, but I see it all. A mountain stands where they see a wall. Claws in the sand, eyes to the sky. Every word a battle cry. Strength and faith I can't deny. This lion lives and lions don't die. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. The fire of the restoration burns with holy strength from the Savior's arm. Standing tall in the light, called now for the fight. words like arrows in the night. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. They throw their stones, but I don't fall. Their whispers crumble against my call. I see the doubt, but I see it all. A mountain stands where they see a wall. Claws in the sand, eyes to the sky. Every word a battle cry. Strength and faith I can't deny. This lion lives and lions don't die. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. The fire of the restoration burns with holy strength from the Savior's arm. Standing tall in the light, called now for the fight. The lions of Judah and Ephraim unite. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide.
I think we'll end it there. Three
that's
times
sick.
is probably good enough.
I'm
Oh,
chilling,
man. Right on, man. Welcome, everybody. We're about to throw our own hat into the ring of the butthurt Catholic extraordinaire, Joe the Heschmeyer, if you couldn't tell by the title. Oh, my goodness. He's just making the rounds. He just wants everybody to know that, like, no, it's not the Catholics that were wrong, it's the Mormons. See, I didn't really lose. I didn't lose, guys. That wasn't me. So I was like, okay, Joe, yeah, sure, we believe you. Anyway,
I didn't
welcome,
lose.
everybody.
I didn't lose. I just avoided every argument.
I just avoided every argument. Welcome, everybody, to this live cast on the Latter-day Lion channel. I have my good friend here, Dalton from Unashamed Truth. What was funny was we were actually watching a premiere where you were actually in the Ward Radio studio,
Yes.
talking about Galatians 1:8 and a lot of the same arguments that Joe was actually going to be bringing up here in a little bit. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you?
Yeah. So I think you gave me a pretty good introduction there. I am Dalton. That's my real name. My Instagram is UnashamedTruth116. Same with my TikTok. You can find me on both those. And then hopefully, if I can figure out technology, YouTube channel coming soon. So we'll see how
Right
it
on,
goes.
man. Sweet. Awesome. So you haven't seen any of this yet,
Nope. I
have you?
felt like it would probably be better to be like the first reaction to how he does it. Because I was like, oh, because yeah, Carden told me he was doing something on it, and then we were planning to do something on it, and I was like, I just gotta wait.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was watching this and I was just like, are you serious right now, dude? Like, yeah, see, and the thing is that Kiori here is absolutely right. You can always win by constantly moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's just kind of how Joe Heschmeyer, like even during the debate, like it was so
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous. Like, my gosh. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start this here? We'll have a little bit of a live reaction for you.
sure.
We're in for an interesting occasion, I will say this.
If it's anything like the actual debate was, I'm excited because
we're
our emotions
gonna
were
have fun
fired
with
up there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because like, gosh, there's just so much that he brings up here. So here we go. Just a little bit of an introduction here. Pints with Aquinas was actually recently acquired by the Daily Wire, right? So we have a lot to kind of go over here, but it essentially turned the Daily Wire into anti-Mormons.
Anti-Mormon propaganda.
Anti-Mormon propaganda. So yeah, so we'll do this. We'll make us a little smaller so that way you guys can see this a little bit better here. But yeah, so let's just kind of go through this here. We'll try to skip through some of the ads and a little bit more of the fluff, but we'll just keep going here. Dalton, you let me know when you want to pause, or I'll pause when we want to kind of talk about things.
I will say that is a sick name, though.
It is.
I gotta give him credit. Pints with Aquinas is pretty dope.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, gosh. All right. Here we go.
Joe Heschmeyer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
This is a bit bloody different, isn't it?
It is similar in some ways, but very different in others.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Gotta
You
love
need
a
to
budget.
walk through behind the scenes and seeing all the people that are helping you now, whereas before it was kind of a two-man show.
Yeah, it's a bit different. And I also just love that we've got 6 vessels of liquid
Yes,
on our
exactly.
table.
We've got
Fuel
for the journey.
Bro's got
but I'm so
bourbon
glad to
for
have you on the
days.
show. You have had a
Yeah.
lot going on lately. You've been debating Mormons and
Oh, no, the Mormons.
running away from Orthodox.
He'll probably start running away from Mormons after this, too.
So here's how we'll start, all right? And then if you don't like this, you can just pretend you heard a different question and answer however
Just
you
like
wish.
the
I've watched
debate.
politics before.
All right, well, here's the question. Why are Mormons atheists?
What?
So
Hold on.
it's a very loaded
Okay, all right,
question,
all right,
and I think it's
His opening statement is, "Why are Mormons atheists?"
The opening question. Why are Mormons atheists? Well, I mean, I will say this. In the very beginning, Joe is a bit more ecumenical. I guess I would say more pragmatic. But then a little bit later on, he'll actually go into that. So we'll
Okay.
this won't happen for at least another half hour. So
Maybe I should have peeped this
So-
before. I'm
but-
already getting blood.
we're already
All right.
fired up. But no, like
we go.
there's something to be said here, because when he gets to a certain point, he's going to start like I want to bring up the question that I asked at the Jacob Hanson Joe Heschmeyer debate back in December,
We definitely
because yeah, like this is, in fact, why don't I actually show it now?
should. Sure.
And do that. So let me stop sharing this. Because there is a lot. Like, listen to this. Listen to this. All right. And you see me here, my, decent mug. There's Card. I had no idea Cardin was that tall, to be fair.
Yeah, dude. I was gonna say
Like-
it's hard to get any sort of camera time if Cardin is on the shot, because he is a
Right.
giant.
For real. All right. Let's go ahead and do this.
Okay, we got Bonte from Utah. Yeah. Also, Latter-day Line on social media, shameless plug right there. Anyway, in my reading of Acts, I also see 2 other apostles besides Matthias and Paul, Barnabas and James, who led the Jerusalem Council. Given that, and we see the apostolic succession only occurs with new apostles being called, where do we get the indication within the biblical text, either from the apostles or Jesus himself, that the office of apostle was ever meant to end and general leadership was to go to the bishop?
Okay.
Great question.
So yeah, pay attention to how Joe answers this. It is absolutely ridiculous. I had another question kind of rattling through my brain at the time. It's like, where? So by your logic, and we'll go into Matthew 16 a little bit. So by that logic, if the gates of Hades could not prevail against the church, would that mean that death prevailed against Christ?
Mm-hmm.
That I felt was a bit more of a gotcha question than this one. So I was like, you know what? I'll play nice. So,
Yeah. Well, and to your credit though, that's still a solid question from the Catholic
Yeah.
perspective. If you're able to say, oh yeah, like this definitely did happen, the chain was unbroken, then like that solidifies your cause, right?
Right.
Or if apostles were not meant to be, like why are we seeing more apostles being called then? So you're going to have to answer one way or the other.
So we'll hear Joe's answer to this, or I guess more non-answer, and we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it's a good question. So
in terms of the 12, it's very clear with the calling of Matthias, if you don't mind this recap. Sorry. The choice is limited to only those who have accompanied from the beginning.
No, it's not.
Where's the verse?
Wherefore of these men which have accompanied with us all the time that the Lord Jesus went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John, unto that same day as he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Where were the apostles at Jesus' baptism?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
not
it gets
101.
worse. It gets worse. It gets worse.
So why are the apostles sent? An apostle is one who is sent. They are explicitly sent to be witnesses to the resurrection. So anyone who was not born or was not a witness of the resurrection couldn't be that. Paul is an apostle in a second sense. He's also sent. So there is, apostolos, like he is also sent. He's not one of the 12. So the 12 are a unique thing. You have people sent anytime. And in fact, St. Francis de Sales talks about how there's two ways people are sent. They're sent either immediately by Christ or immediately through the church. So if you take that loose sense of apostles, you can talk about Mary Magdalene as apostle, the apostles, or anyone who's sent as like an apostle. But in the capital A apostle sent, this means the 12. And that is uniquely tied to those who were witnesses to Christ, which is why in Luke 22, there are 12 chairs, 12 thrones in heaven for the 12 apostles. This is a unique thing capped at 12. And there will never be more than that.
What?
A non-answer. A complete non-answer from Joe Heschmeyer.
No, all I learned from that is that he thinks less of Paul than most Christians.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I learned.
But he didn't answer the question at all. He didn't address it. Like, there's nowhere within the text that indicates that the apostles, were capped at the 12, and that Matthias, like, even by that sort of roundabout reasoning, Matthias should not have been considered an apostle. At least not in the same sense with the rest of the 12, because it would have been only those 12. Just because it was there, like it explicitly says in Acts 1, that he was to replace Judas, the betrayer.
Well, and Joe's argument there was that, well, it's a different kind of apostle, a secondary apostle. Okay, where does it talk about that?
Right.
Like where does it say, and Paul called as an apostle of the Lord, but a secondary apostle, not equal to the other apostles, yet will lead the council in Acts 15 and have direct dialogue with Peter and contend for what will be doctrine, but he's lesser.
Or like how James the Just, or James the brother of Jesus, however you want to call him, is essentially the one who replaces James the son of Zebedee.
Right.
In Acts 12. Like, oh gosh. Like, it's to say that there's a different classification of an apostle when you're referring to the James the Just, Barnabas, and Paul, but not that same classification when referring to Matthias. There is no reason for that at all. Like, and there's nowhere within the text that even indicates that. Nothing from the apostles themselves. And this goes into my question: where do we get anything from the apostles or Jesus himself? Because a lot of the times when I speak with Catholics, like on TikTok and stuff like that, they'll bring up like Ignatius and some of the other church fathers. But even they will admit they're not apostles. So where do we get the indication that the apostleship was ever meant to end? It's not there, Joe. Where is it? Like, but he does this, and Bo Omega's right. Like, he does this kind of special pleading throughout.
I haven't read that book too much. I'm not familiar.
Oh, my kids appeal to it all the time. So anyway, let's go back to Joe on his when he's now in friendly territory, back on the Daily Wire with Pints with Aquinas with Matt Fradd, or Matt Fraud, if you want to call him that.
Real quick before we do that,
yeah.
Or let me look at this. So I just pulled up Romans 1:1 because I was just reading this. But so Romans 1:1 and Galatians 1:1 both start with Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of God. That's Romans 1:1. Galatians 1:1. Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but of Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. And then again in Acts 14:14, which when the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people crying out. And in 1 Corinthians 9, this is Paul specifically. Am I not an apostle? Am I not free? Have I not seen Jesus Christ our Lord? Are not ye my work in the Lord? If I be not an apostle unto the others, yet doubtless I am to you. For the seal of mine apostleship are ye in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how you can get secondary apostle from that. Personally,
No, you really can't. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't understand the entire shtick that he and other Catholics will try to do in order to try to justify the claim that there would be no more apostles after, X, Y, or Z time. The question that I often ask, because I have to very much clarify this, where do we get that indication that the apostleship was ever meant to end? Not that it did, because that's not even in dispute, because it did. But where do we get that indication that it was meant to? And they can never answer that. Like,
yeah, I think the biggest enemy of them in that case is the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, truly.
Yeah. Like that's where we get the direct words of the apostles themselves. Like,
Or
if
apostles like Paul,
or the secondary apostles, right? But the thing is, though, is that if we want to have this type of leverage, then why is like none of the words of the church fathers considered scripture? If they are considered the apostles' successors and they are the apostolic succession, the line of apostolic succession, why are their words not considered scripture?
Yeah, I would even argue that they have a better case to be considered secondary apostles than Paul does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I mean, I don't know. I think it's wild if you call Paul not an apostle. I don't see how anyone who can logically read the Bible and be like, yeah, that makes sense that he's lesser. Because how much is let me look real quick. There's
all right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 out of what, the 33, almost half of the entire New Testament is Paul. And so they want to consider him a lower. It's crazy to me. But yeah, at least the early church fathers I could see being considered secondary apostles by that standard, because they didn't have the direct, the priest, I guess, conferred to them, but they still, I guess it'd be more like a 70 if we want to compare it to LDS terms. Like,
sure,
I could even understand that argument, but to say that Paul and Barnabas were not apostles is ludicrous.
Yeah. I wonder if Joe, and Joe is welcome to dispute this, but I wonder if Joe, based on that answer that he gave to me at the debate, would consider Paul a false apostle, or consider that he would have some kind of stolen valor going on, especially with what you just read in Galatians and in practically every other letter attributed to him.
Yeah, because he's going around saying I'm an apostle. So if he's not an apostle, that's got to have some repercussions, right? Like, I can't go around telling people I'm a stake president.
No. Or a bishop or an elders quorum president if you have not been, set apart to that office. Like, oh gosh, like yes. And Tim, thank you for being in the comments here. You're providing some really valuable insight. Acts 15 does state that Jonas and Barnabas, well, Jonas was called as a prophet, but Barnabas is also called a prophet and an apostle. There's
Acts
that.
15?
Yeah.
Tim, do you know where the which verse that is? I'd be curious to know. If not, I can find it. But
let me see if I can actually pull it up on mine. 1 second.
I have technology. Why don't I do this?
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Let me pull this up here, because I think that'll. Let's It'll provide a little bit. Let me pull up my screen really quick.
Well, so
I got the
this is where my brain goes for this kind of stuff, because
Mhm.
I think so. First and foremost, I think Joe is a very intellectual guy. Like, I don't think he's dumb, right? I
Right.
think he's smart. I think he's well educated. I think he's well spoken. And honestly, I don't have anything against him on a personal level, like really truly. But it begs the question for me is, how does someone who has so much, I guess, understanding and intelligence and like literacy in the scriptures not find something that I'm pretty sure we were taught in primary? Like, how
Right.
do you see these scriptures and come to the conclusion that there were to be no more apostles than the big 12?
Right.
Like, I just
Right.
like, genuinely, I don't see, and I don't see, like, I think part of the reason why he dodged the question is maybe he knows that and doesn't want to necessarily engage in that right then and there, because that is kind of a, I mean, if I'm in his position, I don't know even how to play the devil's advocate right now for this
Mhm.
argument, which I try to do, like, I really do,
Right.
and I just don't. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would refute the idea that no, we were supposed to be done with the apostles. Like,
Right.
12 seats in heaven, sure, but we can also say the 144,000 is a thing and everyone be Jehovah's Witness.
And the 24 elders that surround the throne of God. You know,
Yeah, and so
in
it's like,
Revelation.
if we're gonna play the literal card, then there's a lot more that we have bigger problems then. If we're gonna play
Right.
the literal card.
Right. So this is where it talks about prophets in Acts 15. So right after the Jerusalem council, they were sent off and sent down to Antioch. When they gathered with the congregation together to deliver the letter, when they read it, they rejoiced at the exhortation. Judas and Silas, who that were themselves prophets, said much to encourage and strengthen the brothers and sisters. So
Yeah,
we have Judas and Silas being referred to as prophets.
Yeah, so then by this argument that
Mhm.
that Joe just laid out, is Paul a false prophet or not?
Right.
Right? Or is Silas a false prophet? Because if none of these guys, I think the example use of Stalin Valor was really, really good, because if these guys are not actual prophets and apostles, they're doing work of prophets and apostles. And if they don't have the ability to do so, they're essentially false. And it's like a Jeremiah and what's his name? What's the false prophet that he contends with? I can't remember off the top of my head. But they're just saying stuff, and now they're leading the people astray because they're saying things that they don't have the authority to say. So that causes a problem. I happen to really like Paul's letters. So, but if he's a false prophet, then
why do we have them?
why do we have them? Why are they in there?
Right.
Why did they take precedence at the councils over other words? You know?
Right. I mean, like, looking over in the Jerusalem council, there is no indication that Paul and Barnabas are considered lesser apostles. Same with James the Just. None of it. None of them are considered to be lesser apostles or any other kind of different office or authority than the other apostles and the rest of the quorum. Like, we see this pattern of an apostle dying, and then the rest of the apostles meeting to fill that vacancy. We saw it happen with Judas. We saw it happen with James the son of Zebedee. And then we also have Barnabas and Paul, but we know nothing about their calls. Like, nothing. Like, the only indication that we have of Paul being called as an apostle, a lot of people like to point to his, conversion on the road to Damascus, which, okay, fine. But there's nothing within that the Lord says to either him or to Antipas that says that Paul was called an apostle, because he hadn't even been baptized yet.
Mm-mm. Well, see, in something that I find, and I'm looking for the verse real quick here, but I just can't get over the secondary apostle thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find it. It's in my Galatians 1:8 argument that, ironically, I probably should have watched a little bit better. But it talks about how Paul basically chastises Peter for separating himself, from the Gentiles a little bit.
Yeah.
But if Paul is considered secondary and Peter is essentially the first pope or the leader of the Catholic Church, right? Why in the world is he even entertaining Paul's rebukes? And why is he engaging in, like, if they don't have the same authority.
They don't have the same authority. Yeah.
Right. Then why is Peter even entertained? Because in Acts 15, in the chapter that you're in right now, that half of that is Peter and Paul contending. And so my question is, okay, well, if he's secondary, why did Peter entertain it at all? Why didn't he say, hey, sit down, my authority is better than yours, kind of a thing?
Right.
You know?
Like, and that's the entire thing with the Catholic argument too. And this is something that Jacob brought up in the debate, is that like if Peter was the first among equals, right? Like he would have been like, if he felt like he had the authority to basically put Paul down, which he very well could have, and according to the Catholic position should have,
Yeah.
then we wouldn't even have the council in Jerusalem. We wouldn't really have any of Paul's letters. All Peter would have had to do would be like, you're not an apostle. Sit down and shut up.
It literally would have been like, hey, sit down and watch me work, youngin'. You know,
Yeah.
like you don't know what you're talking about. Wait till you get some experience as an
Right.
apostle. Then we can. And it's like, but that didn't happen. Peter literally like accepts and humbles the fact that Paul delivered his chastise, whatever you want to call it. And then, which ends up leading to Peter's vision that, hey, maybe the Gentiles should get all the equal stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Right?
I just can't, I don't understand why he didn't, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Either he knew like, crap, that's a question I don't want to get into right now, or he genuinely just hasn't read the scriptures. And I don't think that he hasn't read the scriptures.
No, I don't think he has. And well, outside of like the typical apologetic, right? Like, and even then it's proof text all to oblivion. There's no way to, you look at what the actual text says, like, this does not say what you're trying to make it say, Joe.
See, that's what surprises me, because I feel like, I don't know, I am nothing special when it comes to like arguments and none of that stuff, but I read my scriptures. And so it's like, well, it makes sense to me. And I don't think God is a respecter of persons. I'm a layman. Like my 8-year-old is probably going to understand the same. Like it's just weird. I just don't think he's a dumb guy. And so I think this is either a really dumb mistake or intentional ignore, gish gallop, run around. I don't want to answer that right now. And if that's the case, that's not looking good for
well, and I remember as I was going back and sitting down, I was listening and I was like, wait, he's not answering the question. Like you remember we were sitting in the very back of the
I remember looking at you and being like, that has nothing to do with what you asked me at all.
like I was sitting here, it's like,
the Billy Madison scene was going through my head where it's like we all just got dumber. Like I was like, that wasn't even close.
Nothing you have all said. May God have mercy on your soul. Shall we continue with what he tried to do within friendly territory? Let's go. Let's do it.
It's the kind of thing that is likely to hurt someone's feelings. So I want to be clear. Let me give a preamble to the answer.
I don't know. I think the only one here is who has hurt feelings is
members
you, Joe.
of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
LDS, Mormons. Although sometimes we use Mormon to refer to non-LDS followers of Joseph Smith.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Gotta
they
love
took
life.
It down. They saw us.
I don't know.
Us doing it.
They saw it. No.
They called me out.
Uh-oh. What the heck happened? What's going on here? Oh, it's gone down to 25. No, I don't want it at 25.
So it's a very loaded question, and I think it's the kind of thing that is likely to hurt someone's feelings. So I want to be clear. Let me give a preamble to the answer, if you don't mind.
A preamble.
Dealing with members of the Church
not that
of
hard
Jesus
of an
Christ
answer.
Saints, LDS, Mormons. Although sometimes we use Mormon to refer to non-LDS followers of Joseph Smith as well. They often come in with a certain experience of having been misunderstood, misrepresented, mischaracterized. And so there can be a little bit of frankly, pretty understandable protection, maybe knee-jerk defensiveness.
Hold on.
It's very easy.
Didn't he just say that we were atheists?
No, that was Matt Fradd first.
Okay,
because I was like, justify it.
Okay, because I was like, he just is saying that, like, oh yeah, I feel bad for them because they're misunderstood. Da, 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 da. By the way, Mormons are atheists. Like, hold on.
Yeah, right. But I want to address the super chat here. Thank you for the $10, Tim. There's a reason Paul was called to preach to the Gentiles, because he would not have been as effective in preaching the gospel to Jews, and that's very true. especially considering Paul's background. He was a Pharisee and then betrayed the Pharisees. So that makes things interesting.
He's got problems on both sides.
Oh yeah.
He burned bridges on both sides, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah. So, all right, let's get back to Joe here.
Come off as needlessly combative. So we have to sort of thread the needle where we approach people charitably and we speak the truth in love, but we also take care to recognize it's very easy to get things wrong when you're trying to describe a belief system that isn't your own. Like every Catholic knows this. Like every Catholic has had the experience of being told, here's why it's wrong, you guys worship Mary. And you just say, like, we don't though. Or you have someone quoting some really crazy liberal Catholic and saying, well, look, here's a Catholic priest who even says this. And you're like, well,
and we have those
no
too.
weight in my view
Agreed.
of the world. Just because, somebody with an SJ after their name in the mid 20th century says a certain crazy thing, that doesn't automatically make it true. It doesn't automatically make it a representative view of the Catholic Church.
That's fair.
So I say all that at the outset to say, I'm going to do my best to fairly and charitably present the Mormon position. Again, I'm using Mormon as a shorthand here, not in a pejorative way, but also provide some actual critiques of it. So I would just beg forgiveness in the beginning if I get anything where you say that's not quite how we would articulate it, or that's just one view among many. I've done my best to make sure I'm representing the actual position. The other thing that makes this trickier with Mormonism compared to something like Catholicism is there's not a catechism.
Yeah.
So you can say here are some official.
Okay.
Wait.
For good reason. There's no catechism. For good reason.
He said that like it was a bad thing.
Right. Like, oh gosh.
Like they all didn't fight over who had the actual ultimate authority, because all of them had the ultimate authority and split off and started their own churches. So now who do we know who really has the ultimate authority?
Right.
The Mormons don't have that, so it's a disadvantage. It's like, what? Hold on.
Don't do that, Joe. Like, no, because that doesn't quite work that way.
Not quite.
But no.
Mormon sources. You can even say, here are things that your presidents in the past have said, and they're regarded as prophets.
Right.
And we expect, as non-Mormons, that that's going to carry the same weight as if you said, Isaiah says such and such. Okay, it doesn't matter that Isaiah is not alive anymore. He's inspired by God. He's got revelation. So obviously we carry that with the weight that we would carry it if we were alive in Jesus's day and hearing, St. Peter.
Pause it for just a second, Monty. So this argument drives me nuts. And I'll use, here's the thing. People think that every single word that Isaiah spoke, it's like he didn't speak anything else other than the words that were written down.
Right.
He never talked outside of writing the scripture. And so, for me, it's like, imagine if you actually knew all the conversations of those people. You tell me that they didn't have anything radical in their life that they would have said at all. Not one thing that would make you kind of like, and I'm not saying that. I think that goes for every religion. I think there's some crazy Catholic quotes. There's some crazy Mormon quotes. There's some crazy Jewish quotes. Like everyone has, no one is perfect. No one bats 1,000 on never saying something stupid.
Right.
Right. And so when people say like, oh, well, we have the words of the scriptures and they never said anything dumb. It's like, well, okay. Again, the Bible has had how long to be fine picked and translated and, reviewed, and well, we don't want to put that in there. There's tons of stuff. Whereas with our prophets, I mean, for good or for bad, the Mormons are extremely good at record keeping. Right. And so it's like, we lay it all out there. Like you can have access to all of our stuff. Like we don't hide it, Anyway, so it just drives me nuts when people. And
the thing is, though, is that it's kind of the same type of premise that so many Catholics have. Like, I don't know if you've had this kind of debate with any kind of Catholics, but how many books are in your New Testament? Like, what kind of where did you get your canon from? It's like, well, we don't view scripture as univocal or having been closed. So, we can thank you for giving us the scripture that we do have, but I also blame you for taking away a lot of the scripture that we don't.
Yeah. I always like to, whenever I have people that try and again, I'm open to it. Like I love having the conversations, but they'll come at me immediately with all these different accusations. And I'll be like, well, do you want to use the Bible? And they're like, great. And I was like, okay, which one are you using?
Right.
Oh, King James. Okay, so what did you take away? Right. But well, what do you mean? Well, I use the NRSV, right? Okay, and then if I'm using the NRSV, it's like, okay, well, I'm using the King James. So how do we bridge this gap first?
Yep.
Right, and that always is like, oh, well, help me solve that problem first, then we can move on to the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sorry, just had to vent there for a second. Go ahead.
No,
keep
you're
going.
fine. It's a very common misconception and everything like that. Like there's a reason for it. Like trying to use these types of arguments, especially from their own paradigms, like, well, we don't have the same paradigm. This is one of the reasons why we have to have the definitions brought up, but they won't have that conversation. But anyway, let's see what more we got here.
Things, whether they're alive or dead, it doesn't matter. But because of their vision of ongoing revelation, when you cite to even like past presidents, even though they were regarded as prophets, they don't seem to carry the same weight as the living.
I don't think they believe in infallibility at all for anyone.
No, Jacob Hanson in our debate explicitly denied that. So I think these are important things to just know at the outset. There is a line that Flannery O'Connor says in a letter, I believe it was to Dr. Spivey.
Man, that's an Irish name.
Where she says, you can know what I believe because I'm a Catholic, but I can't know what you believe as a Protestant unless I ask you. And Mormonism is somewhere in the middle between those two, where there's a lot of, I mean, you have an authority. So you can point to things where you say, look, your church teaches XYZ in a way you can't for something like, there's no Protestant church of an equivalent structure at all. But on the other hand, there's very few things that are going to fall in that all LDS are required to believe whatever. And so it's much more that this is a common Mormon view. You might find some outliers. I give all of that to say, even on big issues like the theology of God, you can find some very strange differences within Mormon thought. Strange from the outside. Things where you would expect them to be much more harmonious than they are.
Quick clarifying question. Do they believe in biblical inerrancy?
No. So they...
Okay, there we
Joseph
go. Thank you,
Smith
Joe.
articulated that the Bible was, divinely inspired as it was originally written.
Yeah.
But that leaves open the idea, as you get in Islam as well, that, maybe the manuscripts were corrupted.
So it would seem to me that if you're dealing with a religion who doesn't believe that their
Shameless
scriptures
Islam
are
plug.
inerrant or their prophets are infallible, that there's probably going to end up being a lot of flex in the joints.
Yes, that's a great way of describing it. And a lot of just,
Flex in
that's
the
not what we talk about
joints.
right now.
Yeah.
So you can find
How
things
can we
that
get
were
away with
very
everything?
clearly taught with what seems to be the highest level of authority. And
Coming
we'll
from us,
return
we're
to
the
that in a minute.
strictest freaking church.
What? Just
Where
wait.
now
We
it's
don't
Just
drink
wait.
coffee,
Just a
Joe.
And they
No,
rejected
no,
it
no.
as not
Just
even
wait
being
what
true.
he uses
The
as an
most
example.
famous example of this, and we can get into kind of the nuances of the level of authority at which it was taught and everything, is what's called the Adam God doctrine. And in the Adam God doctrine, Brigham Young, the immediate successor after Joseph,
Oh my god.
Oh, let me guess. Oh, it was actually quoted by Brigham Young back in the day. It was an official doctrine, because it was in principles and oh my gosh,
Or gospel principles, yeah.
Calm is a mile away.
The funny thing is that, like, here's the thing, like, especially with the new research that we're going at, especially with the manuscripts and the shorthand that we have from George Watts and other scribes, the Journal of Discourses is looking to be very, very inaccurate at best. Especially when you know the history between, especially Brigham Young and George Watts. Like this is like they had a falling out because George Watts wanted more money. And so he altered especially Brigham Young stuff. And so all of these people who are claiming all of these, like when you actually look at the circumstances when they were there, one, they actually don't align with what is actually printed in the Journal of Discourses. And two, they weren't there. In fact,
yeah,
like,
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so when you look at the history of like what the Adam God theory ultimately was and the Adam God doctrine, whatever, like it only seemed to stir up the minds of people outside of Utah. And that was because the only way that they were actually getting the words of the prophets directly was from the Journal of Discourses. Now, he will mention later that the Journal of Discourses was originally quasi-sanctioned by the church. And in a way it was, but the church did not have the publishing rights to it. And that's ultimately the problem. And the church didn't get the rights to the Journal of Discourses until long after Brigham Young was dead. They didn't have access to the shorthand. And we've only just barely gotten access to the shorthand and are able to compare that with what's actually in the Journal of Discourses. Like, wait a second, this doesn't line up at all.
Yeah. Well, and like Ward Radio, I think it was maybe like a couple months ago, but they did a fantastic episode on the Adam God theory and actually looking for evidence. They're still looking. Like they're, still looking. There's just nothing that you can definitively be like, nailed it. That he
like
definitely
this is what Brigham Young definitively said, and this is what he pointed to in order to support it.
It's like it's kind of like the King Follett sermon, in my opinion. Right? There's 4 different accounts. There's people that talk about it. The situation's different from each account. Like I don't inherently disagree that everything that Brigham taught is inherently wrong, but like there's got to be some common sense when you're like, hold on, before we unpack this and say this is definitively what Mormons believe, you're like, what do we actually teach in church? What do we actually have our missionaries go out and teach you? Right. Like, but no one ever wants to weigh those. They just want to hear the first thing and immediately go for it. And it just sounds like Joe is just kind of doing the same thing. Like, I lost the debate, so let me tell you something crazy about the Mormons.
Let me actually not address any of the things that were brought up, but let me tell you all the ways that Mormons were actually heretics and atheists and all this, that, and the other. At least,
like, what exactly is his purpose of this? Is this trying to?
He's
I don't even know what he's trying to do here.
He's trying to lick his wounds. Like it doesn't. This is exactly what it is. Like, pay attention here to how often Joe invokes Jacob Hanson in this. Like, it is insane how many times. I wish I had the technical know-how to throw up a Jacob Hanson counter.
I'm gonna tally it right now. I'm doing it.
All right. Let's pay attention here, because I mean, there's an entire section of this video here going over Jacob Hanson and the
shifting
debate that they hit. and shifting Mormon apologetics is what they call this section. But this is a little ways down the road. But yeah, there's a lot here.
So is Joe trying to teach Matt? This is him teaching what Mormons believe. That's what this is supposed to be, right?
Okay, no, look at this comment here though. First, like, there are a huge number of Mormon comments below from Mormons whining that I discussed and to critique Mormonism without a Mormon present, and almost no thoughtful responses to the actual critiques that were raised. Very interesting. If you're a Mormon who thinks the claim we made was false, let us know straightforwardly below. Matt.
Where do we type?
Yeah, Matt and Joe, if you ever happen to come across this, hi. Welcome to those thoughtful critiques, I guess, if you really want to call it that. Maybe with a little bit of an actual bite to it as well. Because honestly, yes, Joe, if you're happening to watch this, there's no other way to take this than to see you licking your wounds and being butthurt over getting smacked at the debate. There's no other way to put that.
Dude, I don't even, from what I've seen so far, I'm trying, like, my brain is trying to like focus on what Joe's goal is right here. And so far, I've been told that Mormons are atheists, that we believe the Adam God theory, and that it's a bad thing we've had schisms. So I'm
only 7 minutes in.
All right, I'm just gonna zip my mouth for a minute. Go ahead.
Smith declared that the only God we're to have anything to do with is Adam. That Adam is our God. He has his own God.
Only if you take the Journal of Discourses uncritically.
Sort of Godhead of 3 persons, not 3 persons in one being, but 3 separate gods united in purpose. This is sometimes called social Trinitarianism. It's just polytheism, but they're united in purpose. So Adam has his own God, Yahweh, and Yahweh has his own God, Elohim. And so it's very clearly like Yahweh is the Father and his Son is Adam. It's complicated. And this, I want to stress, is not what Mormons
did. It's not complicated, Joe.
It's really not.
In fact, later LDS presidents have described this as a damnable sort of doctrine.
I'm a big fan of coffee, which
Okay,
my wife
we'll skip over the ad here.
because it's
Are you a big fan of coffee? Because this church that
absolutely
we
is
have
the
some flex in the
when-
knees. We don't drink it.
Prophet. And how do they talk about it as a damnable doctrine when their second
It's a freaking
prophet
firefighter.
said this?
Don't drink
They'll
coffee.
just say, well,
Right.
we don't know for sure what he meant by it. We don't know for sure that it was said at the highest level of authority. And what makes this complicated is several things. First, he taught this in the tabernacle. Now, that is the closest you're going to get is like ex cathedra.
Because no Catholic
So,
priest taught
in the
anything in the
1850s,
actual
There's
congregation.
a work called Journal
Right.
of Discourse.
Like that's the thing. And he's trying to equate certain things. So like saying that if it was preached in the tabernacle, that it is infallible and
Yeah.
and beyond reproach. Like again,
Where does it say that in our rule book? I would love to. If that's the case, I'm going to run to the tabernacle.
well, and
right now.
he's going to be pulling up quotes from the Journal of Discourses a little bit later. Like this is what they said in the Journal of Discourses. Yeah, again, Joe, the Journal of Discourses, one, again, was never scripture. Two, it is wholly inaccurate because another guy got butthurt by Brigham Young.
And it's called the Journal of Discourses. It's literally a recording of discourses, discussions that have taken place between men. Not all of that's going to be written down perfectly. It's like, for
No.
example, a great example of this. I was at your debate, Joe, with Jacob. I wrote stuff down. I promise you, if we compared notes, it's not going to be word for word.
No, it's
It's not.
not.
And that there, you're welcome. I just taught you what the Journal of Discourses is, like that.
There was an excellent talk at the Fair Conference about 2.5 years ago. That that actually talks about the contributions that James Watt did, because if it weren't for James Watt and the other scribes and their shorthand, we wouldn't know anything. So there is still some worth to the Journal of Discourses, but comparing the shorthand from George Watt and from other scribes and comparing them to what is actually in the Journal of Discourses, it is night and day difference.
Well, it's like the equivalent. Like maybe I'm going to age myself here, but Spark Notes came out my senior year of high school, right?
Yep.
It's like the equivalent of like having a Spark Notes, but you can't go and write an essay with just the Spark Notes alone. I can have some basic bullet points of what was said, but if I still don't go read the book, I'm not going to understand it.
Right. Like there's no way, absolutely no way. But that's the entire approach that they're looking at here, and this is where they're going to start getting into the whole like, oh, there's flex in the knees.
Hold on,
kind of dude
one
here.
second. I'm just going to crack my window open, but I can't hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to do this. Hold on. I'm melting in here.
No, you're fine. We finally get some decent weather in Utah, at least something that is equivalent to winter, and then like that's the entire thing. Yeah, like I'm probably going to age myself a little bit more, and I'm going to echo what Tim is saying here in the comments. Cliff Notes came out before Spark Notes.
Shoot,
I remember
dude.
using Cliff Notes, and Spark Notes didn't come out until after I was on my mission.
Sheesh, bro.
So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's some. I tell you, man, there's been a lot of things that has been the case over the last 20 or so years. I tell you what. In any case, and I say I look good for my age. So
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you look younger than me. So that's not a
See,
good sign for me.
See, like this is this is one of the reasons why I have the beard though too, because like even in the beard, like I'm getting some salt and pepper in it. But if I shave, nothing. I shave off like 20 years. So
See, if I don't grow this, I look like I'm in high school.
Mhm.
So it's like I gotta do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are asking for my driver's license just to buy a freaking candy.
Yep.
Your parents know you're out here. Yeah, I've got 2 kids. myself, so.
my like right after I graduated high school, I went to college, and like the middle school's right down the road over here. It's like, you kidding me? Like, yeah. But anyway, enough about how old we are.
Yeah.
Back to Joe and him licking his wounds.
Journal of Discourses was originally published quasi-officially
That is true,
Loves the
but not
anyway,
not fully
it's
officially, because
published
it wasn't
quasi-officially.
it wasn't
And
published by the
it
church.
records the things that
Correct.
the
They didn't have the
prophets
rights.
are saying in these various contexts. And Brigham Young gives a sermon in which he says all of us can fall into mistakes and errors, and this is true even of the prophets. However, the things said in the tabernacle are different. They're protected from error. Like he makes this
That's
very
not what it
explicit.
says in
Yeah.
the
Actually,
in the shorthand
have
notes
His
at all.
actual words. If we want to,
While you're
Well,
doing that, what
right,
I'm
yeah.
thinking of is if the scriptures aren't inerrant and the prophets aren't infallible, and they can sort of change what they say about God. So one of the things they've changed is that we're not worshiping Adam, it sounds like, okay? Then if Mormon doctrine is mutable, should we hope that it just morphs into Catholicism?
So you have a sort of similar thing with what's.
I
what was
feel like the
previously called
records show that
RLDS, where
Catholicism
they
is joining
sort of accept
Mormonism.
something like the Trinity.
Well, and this is the main reason, like during the debate, this is why Jacob brought up Vatican II in the 1960s.
Yeah.
In 1963. Like the Catholic Church didn't become the Catholic Church
Yeah.
until Vatican II.
Look, I don't have any problem with changes in churches. Like I don't, it was Elder Bednar said, like, if you're not comfortable with change, this isn't the church for you. Right. Like, so like I'm okay with that, with the way that certain things happen, the way that maybe church is structured. You go from 3 hours to 2 hours, right? I still hope that one day they take church basketball and replace it with church boxing, because they didn't end up fighting the same.
Hey, that would be fantastic.
Right. But my point is, like, I don't have a problem with that. But so when people like Joe bring up, they just want to skim over that they've also had their pretty big changes. Right. They like laugh at us like, oh, they've made some changes. It's like, yeah, so have you guys. So have you guys.
It's the hypocrisy is strong with this one. Like,
right.
Jeez. Okay.
Now they've moved into much more.
Who are these people?
This is so after Joseph Smith dies.
Yeah.
He leaves 3 different sets of criteria for who his successors are going to be, and they don't match up. Like he gives contradictory instructions over the course of his life, and so they're
only to those that actually didn't actually study anything. Like, what does Section 107 say about the authority of the Quorum of the 12 in the First Presidency?
Frick, that's a good question. I don't know that off the top of my head.
They are equal in authority.
Oh, well, okay. I should have known that.
Yeah. like the Section 107, which lays out the office of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12, states explicitly that the Quorum of the 12 Apostles is equal in authority to that of the First Presidency. And so the succession crisis basically comes down to, well, is the First Presidency really dissolved upon the death of the president, or do one of the counselors take over? And then there was a letter from Joseph to Emma about Joseph III eventually leading the church, and a lot of people were like, well, no, it's supposed to be a bloodline succession, a monarchy, essentially. Like, no, that's not what the Lord revealed.
That's not how it works. And the Book of Mormon teaches that pretty clearly too, because you got like the whole Book of Omni is like, hey, and I don't have any offspring, I'm just going to dish it to my cousin. And I found King Benjamin being a holy man, right? Like called of God. Here, whoop.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Like that's the problem that they have. And so, the only ones that can actually claim to have that succession of keys is those that are equal in authority, the 2 quorums that are equal in authority. And so if the one quorum is dissolved on the death of the president, the keys to exercise them are reverted to the one that has the equal authority, namely the Quorum of the 12. And so that's where a lot of the issue comes in. And when you look at any of the other breakoffs out there, right, you have us, or the Brighamites, or whatever. I prefer to call ourselves the apostolic branch. We're the only ones who are actually fulfilling Joseph's prophecy that he laid out in the Wentworth letter. The truth of God will go forth boldly, nobly, and independent until it has visited every continent, swept every country, visited every clime, and sounded in every ear, until the purposes of God shall be accomplished, and the great Jehovah shall say the work is done.
Yeah, I think is it the Stringites that are almost like gone now?
Yeah, practically. The Stringites are almost gone. The Bickertonites are hanging on by a thread. The RLDS church is in decline, or the Community of Christ now. Although there is an RLDS that broke off after they changed the
Yeah,
Community of Christ.
they had 2 schisms.
Mm-hmm. And then you have all of these other branches that have just kind of fallen off. One of whom I would say is actually being very stubborn. The Temple Lot folks, they're being very stubborn right now, unnecessarily so. Sell us back the Temple Lot, you twits.
We'll get it. Look, we'll get it eventually. It's just a matter of like,
eventually.
How many teeth do we got to pull before we get there? You know?
Right. But that's the thing, though, is we're seeing all of these things happen, and right now, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that went with the 12 and Brigham Young as its president is the only one that is fulfilling Joseph Smith's prophecy in the Wentworth letter. We are the only one who's going throughout the entire world to find all of lost Israel. None of the others are. And that should say something.
Like, it should at least put a little bit of street cred on our name for crying out loud.
You would think. But this is the kind of thing, like, I mean, he's going to talk, like, he's talking about the succession crisis here and how, like, there were really 3 main groups. And yeah, kind of, but even then, like, it comes down to where have the keys gone? And that's the biggest issue that we come across. So
there's this succession crisis. If you're familiar with the history of Islam and the Sunni Shia split, very similar. This is called the succession crisis of 1844. And so his own wife does not believe the LDS is the appropriate church. She rejects Brigham Young. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of scandal.
There were a lot
Joseph
more
Smith
reasons
has a brother
why she
who dies
rejected Brigham.
mysteriously, and there's accusations of poison. And I mean, it's a crazy situation. And Brigham Young is the one who is appointed with one of the mechanisms. And then again, think about the Sunni Shia thing. Do you go with the blood relative? Do you go with the person who's kind of popularly supported? And you've got the quorum of the 12. And so you have this, this interesting question of how is a successor determined? And this was, to put it mildly, an unsettled question in 1844.
No,
and there
Joseph
were
made it very clear.
Do we wait for everyone to come
made
back
it
so that we can
so
do this?
clear that Brigham was to take the members and the church and go west.
Yes, go west. Like, oh gosh,
like that's not even, that's just, that's lazy learning at its finest. Like, you can anyway.
This is almost as bad as Wes Huff, to be fair. Almost as bad.
Oh, but that's like, you again, I don't think Joe is dumb. I don't think he's a dumb guy. And so I just got to chalk that up to malintent.
Yeah.
Like, it is, you can find numerous records and numerous accounts and just of Joseph being extremely clear. Hey, by the way, something's probably going to go down. If it does, you're in charge and you're going west. Right? Like, it's just like, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
No, but the thing is, though, is that this is something like, again, we're only 12 minutes in, and all of the things that we're coming across here have all been crash out worthy because they've been misrepresented the entire time.
We're only 12 minutes in.
Yeah. And well, and admittedly, like it only goes for about like maybe an hour, honestly, and then they go into the whole Orthodox spiel. But yeah, there's a lot here.
That's how many topics can you hit to try and discredit?
Right. Like,
so fast. That's crazy.
Like they spend a bit of time on racism too. So I mean, honestly, like that's been taught to death.
Yeah,
like,
who doesn't?
Yeah.
Act quickly. There's all kinds of questions about the validity of the election, and I'm an outsider to it. I've got no dog in the hunt, except to say that the result of this is you have a bunch of different schisms. You have a bunch of different denominations of Mormons. The LDS are one of them.
Yeah, and how many schisms of Catholicism are there?
Like 3?
Yeah.
10?
No, the number I saw at one point was that there were 60 different denominations.
Whoa.
But a lot of these are very, very
okay. the fact that they don't look at these and use the same arguments, like, is this a valid internal critique as well? Like, that's the thing that blows my mind, is like they're not even willing to internally critique it themselves.
It blows my mind.
Right. Like, oh, geez.
Very
Small
similar.
groups. So a lot of these
similar
are
in doctrine, or just small?
similar in doctrine. Depends on when they break off,
Okay.
because some break off in 1844.
So you began by saying a group that broke off shortly after Brigham Young.
Yeah, so
now
one of the groups that
holds
break off in the
something like
1844,
Trinitarianism?
and even break off is maybe not the right term, because the question is just who do we think is a valid follower of Joseph Smith? And they weren't part of the LDS and then broke off. They just never accepted Brigham Young as a successor.
Do you see LDS going against each other online as far as like presenting an apologetic for their branch of LDS in the way that Protestants might attack Protestants, you know?
Well, no. So this is where it gets a lot more confusing. I have not seen, I'm sure this exists, I just haven't seen it, like LDS versus RLDS or like Beckerites or any of these. I think these groups are largely too small, and I'm sure that you could find those fights. If the algorithm has not led me into those recesses of the internet.
There's still time.
And actually, so
They don't exist.
No,
I'm just going to tell you straight out. They do not exist at all. Like, those types of fights, they don't happen. We don't talk about each other like that unless we're like face to face. But even then, like, yeah, it's ridiculous to kind of say that it is.
Well, when was the last time you got on and we argued with a bicker tonight?
Never.
Like I'm like, I don't think I've ever even come across one. Like personally,
I've never come across a bicker tonight. I've come across a few Community of Christ folks. I've come across a couple of Stringites, but that's it. Like, there are others that will claim to be fundamentalists, but they're not part of the FLDS church. Like, it's strange. But the concept here that we're looking at is again, Joe trying to force something onto us that, again, if applied to him, if it was reflected back at him, would completely fall apart.
Well, dude, it's just like calling the kettle black. Like, oh, they have schisms, so therefore, it's like, dude, look at your church, look at your organization. You said we have 60 schisms. Do we even have a total like body count for how many schisms come from the Catholic Church?
Right. Well, and a literal body count from the Catholic Church. I mean, if we want to go down that route.
The three pope war was insane.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like that. Oh man. And this is it. Bo Omega.
Yeah. Bo
excellent comment here.
Nailed it.
I don't remember President Young hunting down the entire Smith bloodline, unlike the Pope, anti-popes. Yep. Exactly. You know, and that's the thing. Like, oh gosh, there's a lot here, and I mean, we can go over the racism stuff. I'm honestly bored with it, to be quite honest. But like,
if you feel the need to hit it, we can hit it. But I feel like it's. I mean, I feel like it's been like what, skin of blackness. Yeah, Brigham Young said some racist things. Black people didn't have the priesthood for a while. I personally,
presentism, apply presentism everywhere.
Look, I can sum this up in a couple sentences. One, not as racist as you think. Was it a little racist? Yes, it was a little racist. I think there were some bad things that were involved. I think Brigham Young said and did some things I personally don't agree with. But guess what? Moses was a murderer. Noah was a drunk. Like,
even Peter would be considered a racist by today's standards.
Right. I mean, because what did he do? He gave special treatment to the Jews and let the Gentiles kind of like, nah, right? And who had to come out here and chastise him was Paul. Right. So here's the thing. Prophets, they're not perfect. Brigham Young, I think he was a rough, tough character, but guess what? He had to take this frail beginning church who just lost the prophet of the restoration, bring them over across the nation through Indian territory, try to keep them alive. I mean, it's like, dude, the dude's going to have to, like, the worst thing it could be, like, even I just picture him like my grandpa, like, these are church animals. You got to swear at them or else they're not going to move. You know, like he had
Right.
to be that kind of rough and tough character, and I'm sure some stuff came out of his mouth because he had to give the appearance of, bro,
Mhm.
I will mess you up. You know, like
Right.
that's how he had to be. So give the guy some slack, man. He's getting chased
Yeah.
out. People are trying to kill him. Like he's modern day Moses, except for instead of a pharaoh with chariots and cars, it's now horses and rifles and maps and way more advanced technology. Like they're just getting. I mean, look, just give the guy a break.
I
That's all
mean,
I
yeah,
gotta say.
I mean, like just like with Moses, he had the entire government breathing down their necks.
Yeah,
I mean,
but trying to take him out. It wasn't even just like
right.
chastise. It was like, no, there's an extermination order. We are literally to treat you like rodents.
Yeah, like an extermination order that lasted for nearly 150 years.
Yeah, it's like we're
oh,
gonna find you and we're gonna take you out. And it's like,
mhm.
yeah, sorry if he called them, whatever, some
Yeah,
racial slur.
jeez. Like that's the thing too. Like a lot of people would like to say that like, Joseph Smith wanted to send freed slaves to their own land, which honestly was a common thought during that time. But at the same time, in that same quote, they leave out the part where he says black people have souls.
Right.
This
Right.
like they have souls, guys. Like there's
Yeah.
no getting around that.
They're
have
not
souls that are-
gingers, okay? They have souls.
hey now, but no, like they actually have they have souls and they are eligible for salvation just as anyone else is. Like they trying to equate and again, it's that presentism argument, right? Like it's that presentism argument that they try to throw out time and time and time again. Like, well, Brigham Young was a racist. Yeah, so would you be if you lived in the 1850s.
Yeah, dude. Like
Like
that's the thing is people don't realize that our racism has just been so diluted to our day and age. Like my grandpa, he grew up in West Virginia, right?
Mhm.
And he had reverse. He calls it like what we would call now reverse racism because he was the only white kid,
Right.
and he would get treated horribly, right? But it's like, dude, it just racism existed. Like it wasn't just
Mhm.
whites and blacks and Chinese or like, I mean, I have friends that are Japanese and Korean, and they
Yeah.
are so racist to each other. You know, it's the funniest thing because I'm like, I don't even know what you guys are arguing. But like, but the thing is like it has existed, and our version of racism is so diluted down to what 1850s racism was.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Yeah. So I mean, the whole skin of blackness in the Book of Mormon, you actually read the Book of Mormon, which admittedly a lot of our leaders didn't. And this is one of the things where I think President Benson was trying to get the church back on course. We need to read the Book of Mormon more. We need to flood the world with the Book of Mormon, actually know what it says. Because a lot of the people who perpetuated, like for instance, the skin of blackness, the curse of blackness thing, like, see, it says that here in the Book of Mormon, actually didn't read the Book of Mormon fully.
Mm-hmm.
Because you continue to read the Book of Mormon, it's very clear it's not a literal thing. Like going into just Jacob chapter 3, it talks about like if the Nephites didn't shape up, then the Lamanite skids would be whiter than theirs were.
And here's the argument to that too that I would make. So just to play devil's advocate, even if it was a direct like skin thing, right? Because like I've heard arguments in a couple different ways, but even if it was, like, are you going to put a limit on God that he couldn't? Like, it's I don't know. My whole thing is just like you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Like if that's the focus of your story, is that like, oh, they went bad and now they have darker skin, like right? Like you're forgetting out what they're doing. Like that's kind of important to the story, right? Even to, and this is just assuming that like, yeah, it was literal skin changing, right? Like you're still missing out on the main part of the story,
right?
It's like it's like that's like saying like, oh, Nephi and Lehi and Sam, they all went and they built this big boat and and it's like, yeah, but Nephi's sandals, they were gross on that walk through the desert, It's like, yeah, I'm sure they were, but like you're missing out. He built a boat, yeah, but did he wash his feet enough?
Here's the point.
Yeah, it's
you're
like,
over here.
Dude. Yes, it's like there's so many more important things to focus on. And I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, so we won't touch on the racism bit because it's been done to death, and it's
Yeah.
really just more of a stupid gotcha from these folks. So like that's the here's the kind of the next thing, the contingency argument against Mormon theology.
And how much they understand things like philosophy and logic is going to play a major role.
Philosophy.
Mormons actually have a very good, on the whole, a very good knowledge of Scripture and the ability to cite chapter and verse, much better than you might imagine. But what they don't have is philosophy.
Right. So given what you've said about LDS, flex...
Why does philosophy need to be inserted into theology like this? Like, that's the thing. Like the concept of philosophy being a part of a theological discussion, not the apostles didn't do that. Jesus didn't do that. That didn't really start entering into Christian thought until well into the 2nd century, long after the apostles were gone. In fact, you look at the First Ecumenical Council in Nicaea, there is a whole, like, these guys are unashamedly, they're unashamed Neoplatonists. Like, there's no other explanation for it. And we'll have Tim say here, you know, because it helps the Trinity go down. You know, that's their spoons full of sugar.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and the thing that I quite don't understand about why Catholics trying to, like, I think that Catholics, I don't know, and this is just me, but I think we're probably closer to Catholicism than any other Christian sect, personally. Right? And so I do get a little bit frustrated when we get, like, just so slammed on for being so different, when in reality, like, really the biggest difference for us comes down to, did the priesthood line get broke? Like, most of other stuff from the, like, yeah, like Eucharist, we do a little bit different. We don't do the whole, you know, Mother Mary thing. But, like, most of our core doctrines, as far, like, outside of the apostles and outside of the restoration, like, we talk about the same things. We use the same scriptures. Like, we do a lot of the same things as Catholics. And I just feel like, I don't know, I guess it goes for both sides, but I don't think that both sides realize how close we really are to each other. Like, as far as what we teach and how do we, you know, so it just drives me nuts a little bit with the way that I think Joe's framing this, is he's trying to paint us out to be like this totally different offshoot of Christianity. And it's like, no, dude, I would say if we sat down and, like, had discussions, we'd be on 80% an agreement on most things.
Well, and it goes back to the video that premiered on Ward Radio tonight, going over, you know, Galatians 1:8 and everything like that. Like, if we were to use that proof text in the same way that it's being used against us, we would say, yeah, you're preaching a different gospel because you're preaching a different God than what was taught by Paul, or by any of the apostles. I mean, if we wanted to proof text Galatians 1:8 to these folks as well, we would very much say, yes, it's a very, it's a very good warning against the creeds. You know, and that I think, you know, I used to use that argument a lot when I was doing when I started doing TikTok lives, and it did throw people off a bit. Maybe I should start using it again. But here's the thing too, is that, like, even some of the more, like, other Latter-day Saints, we're too afraid to use language and to use rhetoric in a way that I think is meant to get the point across a little bit more, because we're afraid of how it's going to go down to people. Like, the whole tone police thing that, you know, lately I've had to deal with on Instagram, honestly. But the concept here is that we're too afraid of how things are said as opposed to what is said. And that, I think, is the big problem here. And I will say this, like, going down to the comment here that Matt points out, you know, like, there, you know, a lot of critique Mormonism without a Mormon president and almost no thoughtful responses to the actual critiques that were raised. Very interesting. If you're a Mormon that thinks the claim that we made were false, let us know straightforwardly below. I mean, he doesn't want to have an actual discussion on camera. He wants to have it in the comments.
It's just kind of like, here's my complaint box, and then you put it in the box and it drops into the trash, you know? It's
right,
like,
into the shredder, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the entire thing. Like he's essentially like, and this is the thing, like, he doesn't want to actually have a Latter-day Saint on his show. Like that.
No,
That's not his
the,
goal.
The Daily Wire, it sucks, dude. Because I used to be a big Daily Wire fan. I really did. I like them all, but I'm just.
I will
just
say
watching
this:
the
they've
decline.
gone really downhill ever since Brett Cooper left.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, dude, Brett Cooper was awesome. That drives me nuts. She was.
Yeah.
I think she was cool.
But no, like there's tea there. Like there's tea that happens.
There has
behind
to
the
be.
scenes with that.
There has to be. Well, yeah. Anyway, that's
Like,
a subject for another time.
Yeah,
Let's keep listening to Joe.
Let's go back.
In the joints. How many gods are there? According to the LDS Church, how many
And
gods
the
would Brigham
Bible.
Young say there were? And then how many gods would Jacob Hanson say there are?
Okay.
And I don't mean
question.
gods that we're
Sally.
bound to worship. I mean just gods.
Jacob was asked almost this direct question, because the question he was asked was whether God the Father had a God that he worshipped.
What did he say?
We don't know.
He said we don't know?
Yeah.
But I thought that was Mormon teaching that he did.
So it was.
It was.
Hold on,
but
pause it for a second.
There's
Mark.
All right.
I think you got a super chat
Yep, I got a super chat here
from Ward Radio.
Ward Radio. Thanks, Carden. Thanks for the $20. I'm all about clickbait, but saying Joe Heschmeyer is doing damage control is inaccurate. Catholic YouTube apologists get treated like crap by Protestants, and when they hear Mormonism, they think Protestant 2.0. Not. I think there was there may be another comment here coming. So yeah, but no. Okay, so I agree to an extent. But the thing is, though, to say that Joe Heschmeyer is not doing damage control, I would say is far more inaccurate. Because, like, obviously this was pre-recorded. We don't necessarily know how long ago it was pre-recorded. But given the amount of time that was there and the kind of rhetoric that Joe has been pushing this entire time, I can't help but see this as damage control.
I also found the after half of that, because it looks like he put that in originally and then super chatted it. But so in connection to that, they think Protestant 2.0, they don't realize that we are closer to them than further, which is the point that I was actually making a little bit earlier. So
not similar to us in many ways. They're hyper defensive. The real villainy is Matt Fradd and hosts who talk about us and not with us.
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree.
Yeah, and I think so too. I mean, here's the thing is, this particular episode, I haven't seen all of it, so I don't know how much Joe goes into kind of defending himself over the debate. But I will say, from what I have seen, I haven't seen a whole lot of Joe, but each time that he gets brought up, he seems to just be blame game and Jacob. So maybe I've misunderstood that, but every time that I have seen him talk about the debate, it's always Jacob, lied, or Jacob said this, or Jacob did that. And it's like, at what point do you kind of take the L and say, okay, well, let's talk about it? I haven't seen that happen yet personally.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, you think about his reaction after the debate happened, right? After the debate went down, what was Joe's immediate reaction? Jacob Hanson was he was fired up. His immediate reaction was, oh, Jacob Hanson was being disingenuous. He changed the terms of the debate.
Yeah, and he was saying like he didn't debate the apostasy, and it's like, well, his point was like, I get it, I get where I can kind of see slightly where Joe would come from and be like, oh, he didn't debate the apostasy, but at the same time, I think Jacob did exactly the right thing, because Joe kept trying to turn it into Mormonism is false and you have to defend it, but Jacob's like, I don't have to use the scriptures, I don't have to use Mormon doctrine, like I'm just going to use Catholic history. So anyway, I see it as Joe is kind of running around and saying it wasn't a fair debate. I just think Joe was unprepared for Jacob's response.
Right. Well, the thing is, though,
That's
is that like especially with these kinds of debates, typically you would have a sit down beforehand with just the two of you and say, okay, this is going to be what I'm going to talk about here. And that way you know what to respond to. So that way it is a bit more fair. But Joe decided to forego that.
Well,
he didn't want to do that.
I think too, if I'm Joe, and again, I'm not a staunch Catholic, so this could be completely off. But if I'm Joe and I know Jacob Hanson and I've watched some of his stuff, I know, like, don't you think that there would have been a little bit of something in his head being like, hey, I need to prepare because
Yeah.
I'm sure that Jacob is going to try and point out the direct lineage. Because it's like you don't need to prove every single instance where the apostasy was off,
Right.
but like technically, like if one part of the lineage is broken, then Jacob's point is made.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah,
I feel like if
he didn't even need to go into the aspects of the church. I mean, even from Jacob, what Jacob brought in the debate, if like you said, if the lineage was broken, if there's anything that could be considered like not infallible as far as the papacy and the papal line is concerned,
then there's your issue.
There's your issue. Like any of the different branches of Protestantism could be more true than Catholicism.
Yeah.
Like that's
anyway,
the thing.
Yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it. But I'm by far the least invested in the Joe Heschmeyer beef with Jacob Hanson at this point.
Yeah, like it's but that's exactly it. I mean, given, when this was likely recorded, there is a very good chance that, again, Joe is still licking his wounds. There's no other explanation for this outside of that. That I think is the issue here. Joe is very much licking his wounds and is trying to essentially complain to anyone who will listen. He still thinks he was wronged. He still thinks that Jacob was being disingenuous, despite their supposedly like coming to some sort of agreement on inspiring Christianity's life. Like,
well, and the thing too is it sounds like, I don't know, I'm getting confused a little bit because it sounds like Joe and Jake, and I think even Cardin said that he has a good relationship with them because they were doing like the whole, because Cardin kind of moderated or not moderated, but like took the questions and stuff. But it sounds like they're pretty, like, I don't know, borderline friends at this point. And so when I hear stuff like Joe kind of, I don't know, I'm getting mixed signals a little bit. That's all.
Well, and this is the thing. Like, this is what makes Joe so disingenuous, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've come across people who were, either have left the church and things like that, and I felt like we've had really good, genuine discussions. I've seen them have good, genuine discussions with other people within the church, and then they go around and then all of a sudden they're part of their in group, right? Yeah. And the two-faced aspect of who they are really upsets me. It really pisses me off because the entire concept here is that, if you're being someone in front of other people, like if he's around the Mormons and is acting one way and is very jovial and cordial and things like that, which, fine.
It's fine, but don't call us atheists immediately after.
Yeah, don't call us atheists when you get into your own in group and then say, oh, but really they're damned to hell. Yeah. Like,
anyway, let's keep going with him.
Maybe a little flex in the joints.
Okay, I wasn't trying to be smart. I don't know.
No. This is a great question. So there's 2 things. 1, how many gods are there? 2, what do we mean by gods? And this is going to get to the heart of what we mean in saying philosophically Mormonism is a species
smoking.
of atheism.
I was like, is my
imagine someone who said, I don't believe there's a God who
there.
created everything.
Wonder if
but
it's
I
Cuban.
do believe there's a spiritual realm of ghosts and demons.
With their budget,
angels.
probably.
And if you want to call some of those angels and demons gods, go nuts.
Yep, I get it.
But they didn't create the universe.
Right.
Okay.
That is...
Demons were not a concept held by ancient Hebrews. So the English translation of like when we read in Deuteronomy of like in some English translations of demons, like they didn't have that concept there. They were just gods. Like, I don't. Oh gosh.
Very similar, actually, to where a Mormon ends up.
Right. So
because
philosophically, they don't believe in a creator of all creation.
Yes, exactly. They reject
to philosophy
the idea
again.
of creation from nothing. They believe in creation from pre-existing matter, and if you ask where that pre-existing matter comes from, you get the same kind of shrug of the shoulders.
Okay.
And
so God is not a creator. Their God, lowercase g, is not a creator.
Steel manning it. They're
lowercase g.
Is he? I mean, it sounded like he was referring to what we would say is Elohim as a lowercase, but maybe I got that wrong. Maybe he's saying our version of God.
Our version of God would be a lowercase g.
Okay, keep it
A
going
lowercase
here.
g. We got another super chat that just came in here. So let me go ahead and pull this up here. So from Tim here, it really comes down to pride and ego. Critics do not want to admit they're wrong because they have to admit to being deceived and are deceiving people. 100%. 100%. Like that's exactly it. And so, yeah, and I do have to kind of bring this up here from Toke the Wise. Like, butthurt, this is his job, right? To defend the Catholic Church against false religions. He's don't the same for Protestants. You aren't special, you're just wrong. The problem is that like I said, the reason why I say that he's butthurt is that he's licking his wounds from the debate he had with Jacob Hanson back in December. He got trounced in it. And now he's trying to, talk to anybody who will listen. Because honestly, that debate, especially because of that very point, that this is his job, that's ultimately hurt his credibility in that job.
And for the record, none of us are mad that he's defending his church. Like, I have no problem with that. If you want to go and have discussions and not a problem with that. My only bone to pick with this is that, like you said, if this is his job to do so, he was very poorly prepared for this particular event. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like hasn't quite figured out an angle for after the event either. So I'm all for, I'm all for open discussions. You've probably never seen me before, Tokes, and that's totally fine. But my whole invite is that if someone wants to convince me to leave the Mormon Church, they're always welcome to try. And if you can give me a more compelling argument than what the LDS Church makes, I will join that church. The problem is that every time that we have these conversations, there are questions and things that get brought up that just can't be answered. And my problem is that I feel like Joe had multiple opportunities at this debate, whether it be the Q&A or the actual discussion with Jacob Hanson, to quote unquote squish us on some of these arguments, at least attempt to, and he just flat out avoided it. And so I don't know if that was, because again, I think Joe is a very smart dude. Like I've seen nothing that would show me otherwise. I mean, it sounds like he's a successful lawyer. He's done his research. He's very involved in his church. And so I find it interesting that he would avoid certain conversations that, quite frankly, would need to happen in order to convince someone that Catholicism is true and Mormonism is false, other than just saying you're just false, right? Because again, you're welcome to say what you want, and I would never take away your faith from you. That will never be my goal. But if you're gonna come after us and say like, oh, he's just defending against false religions, that's great. But you're gonna have to show me better than just saying neener, right? You're wrong and I'm right as to why it is. And in my opinion, Joe hasn't really laid out a good enough argument for me to even consider that yet.
Right.
So I haven't seen this. Maybe he makes something in here, but so far all he's done in this video is attack ad hominem attacks against Mormons, claim that we are well, I guess technically Joe didn't claim that we are atheists, but
just wait.
Saying that, okay, well maybe he does, but saying that we're atheists, and he just said like I'm coming from a position of having studied Mormonism, coming to do a steel man the best I can. I haven't seen a steel man. I've seen gish gallop amongst arguments and just kind of throwing things out, hoping that something that will stick. And he knows that he's in a territory right now where he can do that and not necessarily have any repercussions. So I'm not thoroughly impressed with Joe's arguments as of this point, as to what I'm not even sure what the point he's trying to make, quite honest. I just feel like he's just kind of throwing stuff out there at the moment. So I'm happy to, if he wants to have, a little bit more of a discussion, or if he wants to clarify this in the video, like I'm open to hearing it better. And that's what we're watching this for. But as of right now, I haven't been super impressed.
Yeah. Again, like with everything going in, about 22 minutes in, let's keep going.
They're going to say he's a creator in the same way that any artist is a creator.
Okay.
Like when you create content, when you build a statue, we can call Michelangelo a creator in a certain sense, but he doesn't create the marble. He just turns the marble into something beautiful.
Athanasius is on the Incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
he talks about this.
Yes.
He makes this
I don't think he mentions
distinction.
Michelangelo, but you're right.
No, but he does make the distinction. If I'm not creating out of nothing, then I'm like a carpenter that fashions something. I make something,
Right.
I don't create it.
This is much more of the idea of like what we would call a demiurge. So they don't believe in God strictly speaking. They believe in a carpenter, not a creator of everything.
Can we sum it up real quick and then air it out?
Yeah.
My fear is that we're kind of beating, or maybe I keep interrupting you too much. But all right, so let me see if I can sum it up. So, what is God? God is the unconditioned ground of existence.
And here's where they appeal to philosophy
the
in order to
uncaused
describe
cause, the metaphysically necessary being whose non-existence is impossible, the creator of all creation. That's what we mean by
Yeah.
God. Yeah, okay. Mormons don't believe in a thing like that.
Exactly. And
Am I wrong?
They would regard a thing like that as the corrupting influence of pagan philosophy.
So they don't believe.
Okay.
God.
so
Because
hold
it
on.
is!
Yeah, hold on. Okay. So here's the thing. They just were talking about, oh, he thinks he's a marble. You know, he's not the one who made the marble. He's not. No. Okay. I'm gonna shut this argument down really, really quick. Okay. We believe that God created everything. We believe that there is a God, but it's like look at a building. Okay. If a building is built, it didn't just fall into place there. There had to have been a builder. Right. And so like, I don't understand this argument. You're saying that that Michelangelo painted this, sure, but he didn't come up with the paint. Like, that's your argument for how we think what God is like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? If that's your understanding of how we believe God, then you didn't do any homework. Like, you could have just read our articles of faith and gotten more from that.
Right.
So
But-
I don't know. I didn't understand that at all. I don't.
Well, and
understand
the
what you're
thing
trying
is
to
that even in the biblical text, right? Like it does not. It talks about how the waters existed before creation, right? Like going into
Well,
2 Peter chapter 3.
Yeah.
Like
even
like,
science agrees with that statement that matter cannot be destroyed or created, only
Right.
formed.
right.
So it's like, and I'm not even saying science is right on it. Like, I'm just saying to this point is I don't know many people that have a problem with this idea personally.
Well, the only ones that do, again, are those that are stuck in the corrupting influence of philosophy with Scripture.
Yeah,
Like that
sounds
I
like
think is
somewhere
easy.
familiar. Like Tim
Yeah,
said.
right. Like
All
that.
right,
That's the issue here. So I do want to say this, like especially to kind of throw out the whole, again to kind of shut down the creatio ex nihilo argument. Going to 2 Peter 3, starting in verse 5, they deliberately ignore this fact that by the word of God, heavens existed long ago, and an earth was formed out of water, and by means water, through which the world of that time was deluged with water and perish. But Peter is saying that water existed first, and that God didn't create the water, that he formed the world out of the water.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
Well, it's like I made a really silly, funny video like forever ago, but I was making fun of people who would. Well, I shouldn't say making fun of people, but I was making fun of the idea of that like cookies bake themselves and turn into cookies, right? And that I was the one that put them in the oven. And so I was like, oh, how the whirlwind came and it swept the cookies, and by chance the flour fell in, and then the water, and it stirred approximately with the earthquake, and then the gravity. It's just like no, or someone just took the materials and put it in the oven.
Right.
So
Anyway, it's funny. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see what else Matt and Joe have to say about us, but not to us.
Believe in God.
Yeah, they don't. What we mean by God, they would reject as being
But what
contrary to Scripture
but what we mean by God is correct.
correct.
So they don't believe in
The
God.
arrogance.
this
Is that what you're saying, Joseph?
It is.
Okay.
That the arguments that would disprove atheism from
I'm
reason
assuming that they're talking
are
about the
almost
Trinity.
all of them.
Yeah.
Also arguments that disprove Mormonism.
Because they're going about the prime mover, the
Yeah,
unmoved
sure.
mover.
So,
that
okay,
kind of deal.
this is the third of the 5 ways that St. Thomas Aquinas lays out.
Yeah,
And
go
he
watch my
says,
Galatians 1:8
you and
video that I
I,
did with Word
we
Radio. I
are
addressed that. That's
Contingent. We wouldn't be here without
Uno
our
reverse
moms and our
card.
dads, and without water and oxygen and food and everything else. Our existence, it has a beginning. We only exist under certain conditions. We continue in existence under certain conditions, and we could be snuffed out of existence. So we exist under, we'll just say condition X. It's really like a billion different contingencies, but we'll just make it really simple. And then you look at any of the things that we are contingent on, our mom and our dad, or oxygen, or any of these things, and say, does that have to exist? Or is that also contingent? Well, it's also contingent. Everything I've said of you is also true of your parents. Oxygen does not have to exist. We can look at all the biological reasons oxygen exists and so on. And so everything in the cosmos that we encounter is contingent. Here's the problem. If you have only contingent things, nothing will ever come into existence.
Right.
Like if everyone else says, I'm only going to go to the party if that other person shows up first, no one's ever going to the party. You need something that is not contingent. You need something called necessary. Now, you can have multiple things that are necessary, but you need at least one, or else you can't have any existence. That's the first half of the argument from necessity. An illustration that can make this make sense. I'm marrying here a little bit of the argument from contingency and the argument from motion, so bear with me. It can be helpful for people in just explaining.
Again, more philosophy.
Explain this
doesn't
on a bar
follow
napkin one
within
time
theology,
in Arizona to a guy who'd had a few to drink and was skeptical about God.
External
He got it.
philosophy that was not used by the
That's
apostles.
the level I'm-
Pints with Heschmeyer.
Exactly. I just said, okay, imagine you come to a railway crossing and you see boxcars going by. Now, each boxcar is contingent upon the one before it. It wouldn't be there if there wasn't something pulling it along. And you flat surface, so you can't make the earth the thing that they're contingent on. We'll make it
Where
really
is he
easy.
going to try and prove?
You don't.
I don't
see
know. This seems about
engine.
just as coherent as his
Yeah.
response
But
to
you
Land-
know
me.
there has
land
to
the
be.
plane,
It doesn't
Joe.
matter if you have 10 boxcars or a billion boxcars or any number of boxcars. The more boxcars you have, the more you actually need a very powerful engine to be pulling all of those things. So if you say, well, I'm contingent upon X and X is contingent on Y and Y is contingent on Z, these are boxcars. Because as long as you're pointing to more contingent things in that chain, you haven't gotten to the ground of anything existing. And so run that to ground, get to the engine car, and you need something that is necessary, but which also accounts for its own existence. Because you're not going to just arbitrarily say, well, you know what? We think there are always this many atoms in the universe. They just change their form. Or we think there is always space and time. Those things, you can't just arbitrarily choose something and slap the label necessary on it to get out of this. You can't use the brute fact kind of loophole that many atheists try to use. You have to have something that satisfies intellectually the whole that we recognize. Okay, the whole in what we experience is there must be something necessary or none of us would be here. We need something big enough to plug that hole, and that hole seems infinitely large.
Yeah.
And so it must be one who's able to account for its own existence.
Whose essence is existence.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we don't
gosh.
have that.
And this we all call God, Thomas would say.
Yeah.
So if that's true, that is going to take atheism off the table, and it's going to take Mormonism off the table.
Yeah.
And-
And lay out why it's going to take Mormonism off
Because
the
they explicitly deny that God is that. So first of all, he is material. He is made of matter. He has a body. Joseph Smith is very explicit about that in the first vision. He gives contradictory versions as to whether he sees one God or two personages. He originally just says he saw the Lord, and then he later says he saw two personages. At a certain point, there's a question
Okay.
about whether
All right. Talking about the first vision and the supposed contradictions there. Here's the problem with this, and this was actually brought up to me yesterday on TikTok, so I actually really, really like this. If you were to read the Book of Mormon, or read sections of the Doctrine and Covenants, or heck, the Book of Moses, like section 76 was received and written before Joseph wrote, before he wrote the 1832 first vision account. Before he did that. And then you look at the Book of Moses, when he started translating the Old Testament in 1830. It has the Father and the Son as separate entities there. So this is the thing that I don't think people realize, especially when they're trying to bring up this gotcha of, oh well, Joseph had so many contradictory things. No, he didn't. They're actually far more complementary. And even then, like, you have records that actually, like, even if you didn't necessarily believe that they were scripture and actual revelations, they actually do align with what Joseph did say and what we actually do have now in the Pearl of Great Price. that the Father and the Son are two separate and distinct beings. They have their own visage. They have their own essence, if you want to go to that terminology. But there's no instance of Joseph having any kind of Trinitarian concept in anything that he really produced.
No, I mean, you'll get arguments with some LDS people in here, but the thing is Joseph Smith specifically was told that the creeds are an abomination, and the creeds are what kind of created the Trinity. So
right. And why are we so afraid of using that language? Like, really?
Yeah, I don't think we should, but it's not like a huge argument. Like, hey, look, you can like the Trinity, but in our belief,
it's an abomination.
It's pretty cut and clear and dry for us.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3. There's a very strange history in terms of how many personages there are in the Godhead. But one of the things that he's very clear on eventually is that the Father has a body. Now, originally, he doesn't say that. Originally, he says that Jesus is, what does he say? A personage of tabernacle, and the Father is a personage of spirit. So he seems to be saying that the Father is disembodied and the Son is embodied. But later that'll get kind of retconned. That'll be changed. And now they both had bodies. And this is very clear in the King Follett discourse or King Follett's sermon. It's actually a funeral that he's preaching. And
he did get that right.
He's very clear there that God used to be, God the Father.
The fact that it was a funeral, not what he was implying.
And then was glorified and elevated. By whom is completely unclear. Does he glorify himself? Some LDS like Blake Ostler seem to argue maybe he does a self-glorification.
The appeal to Blake Ostler.
Okay. Yeah. But like, how do you give yourself omnipotence if you're not omnipotent?
This is one of the things I really don't agree with Jacob on. Blake Ostler doesn't deserve the praise he gets a lot of the time.
When God was on earth, who did he worship? Unclear. Like those are kind of some problems with that. Most Mormons historically have thought, well, he had his own God, and that God had his own God, and it's just turtles all the way down.
There you go.
And that's just more boxcars. Like that is not an actual engine kind of explanation. Because then you're left without actually hypothesizing.
Okay. 10 minutes later,
any kind of immaterial creator of matter, any uncreated creator of all things.
Again, appealing to Aristotle and Plato.
Immateriality of God explicitly, then you're taking the God you're hypothesizing off of the list of possible candidates to be the God.
I wonder if they realize
now a Mormon listening to you is going to say,
I don't think they're even willing
to approach them ridiculous that God has a body. But guess what, Joe? You believe Jesus is God, and you believe Jesus has a body. Not a problem.
Yeah, it isn't a problem to say that a human nature can be united to a divine nature.
No,
that's
not
not
the nature arguments.
No. Okay.
Okay. Continue.
I'm sorry. Oh man, I like going when I went through this the first time. I'm like, really? No.
Why are we? Is this still a thing? Are we still arguing like natures are different than beings and beings are different? Okay.
Apparently so.
All right. Keep it going.
It would be a problem if you said God always had a body, or if you said he was given a body by some other spirit or some other being that is a separate divine being from God. Because then you've created this problem. Like, if you said...
Let me find this. This is gonna grind my gears a little bit here. He brought the King Follett discourse, and he's saying that it's weird that God would give himself a body or whatever the case was. Let me find my notes here on this. Hang on. I'll even use his quote, "As man now is," right? God once was. As God now is, man may become. So this idea, he's alluding to that, like that we're kind of crazy for that, right? That's kind of the point that he was making there.
Right.
But here's the thing. Guess who said this, Monty? We're going to play a game. You tell me who said this. The Son of God became what we are in order to make us what he himself is. You know who said that?
I want to say Athanasius.
Irenaeus and against heresies. Okay. Yeah. The word of God became man so that you too may learn from a man how it is possible for a man to become a God. Clement of Alexandria.
That's Clement. Yep.
He gave us divinity. We gave him humanity. I think it's pronounced Ephraim, but it's on hymns of faith. Let us become as Christ is, since Christ became as we are. Let us become gods for his sake, since he became man for our sake. Gregory of Nazianzus. I don't know how to pronounce that. The Word became incarnate so that by his becoming we are. He might make us as he is. Gregory of Nicaea. The Son of God became the Son of Man that he might make the sons of men sons of God. Augustine in the main sermons. I mean, I've got like 8 other of these. And so anyway, I just think it's crazy that he'll say, oh, it's impossible that God received a body. That his one nature could give him another nature and give him a body. It's like, yeah, because it's your natures are just a bunch of crap. Like we have literally God the Eternal Father, who, yes, we believe has a body, and Jesus says himself he only does the things that which he has seen his Father do, and he took up a resurrected body. Like, I don't know. Anyway, that just grinds my gears when it's like, no, God has to be spirit so he can be everywhere. So you're going to put limits on God?
Well, that's exactly what the Trinity does, right?
Yeah, it's like you're gonna say that because he has a body that now limits everything he's able to do.
Yeah,
what? It's
God, right?
Literally omnipotent. Anyway, okay.
Yeah. No, let's keep going.
God the Father wants to become incarnate. I don't think that is philosophically precluded. So that's not the argument at all. But the argument is that on some planet, God the Father was once a man. It doesn't seem to have been Earth because this is a planet he created and populated. It seems to have been some other planet he was a guy on. And so this starts to sound much more like the atheist who says our planet is put here because aliens planted people here. It's almost exactly that. But the difference is one person calls themselves an atheist and one person calls themselves a Mormon Christian. But their belief about the origins are both an alien being put the first seeds of life here.
Okay, this hold on. Mormons
okay, all right.
Today
I'm
gonna
say something real quick.
The Heavenly Father.
All right.
So, personally, the idea that he is saying, I don't think is crazy preposterous. Like, could it happen? Sure. Like, I don't necessarily believe it. I'm not going to say that I 100% have supported it. But the thing is that is nowhere in our doctrine. It doesn't exist in our doctrine. Okay. The closest thing, again, is I would refer back to the phrase that I just described, is that when we say that God was once a man, we mean it in the form that Jesus Christ came down and took upon himself a body of flesh. Because if God were to come down and set foot on earth, it would be the spitting image of his son, is just Jesus Christ. Right? Like Chandler, his example that I steal now, so full credit to Restored Truth. But the king and the prince analogy, where the king gives the prince all of his authority, all of his power, so the prince can walk around the kingdom, and whatever he says, it's as if the king said it himself. But he is still subject to the king. If the king gives him a command, he does it. But if he gives others commands, it's as if the king said it. Right. And so I love that analogy. I think it's really, really good. But so for any of you that are watching that have this confusion on, no, Jesus is the one that came down and received the body of flesh and blood and bones. That is why we believe that God was once a man, because Jesus Christ is a spitting image of God. So that we agree to. Infinite regression, this Adam God theory, all these are things, they're just that. They're just theories.
Yeah.
Right. And people like say, oh, Mormons, you're going to get your own planets. Look, as cool as that would be. And honestly, like I can see where you put the chain, like the link together is if we can become like God and God created planets and therefore we can create planets. I can see the logic there, but that's not doctrine. That's not what is taught. So we can become like God and we can progress in all the ways that he wants to have us progress, whatever that entails. We don't know that yet. However, he
honestly, if that were the case, I would expect a little bit more than a planet. I want an entire universe, man.
100%. Why am I stopping at one planet? You kidding me?
Right.
I'm going to build at least one solar system.
At least one.
And one of my planets is going to be made out of candy because I'm a child.
Well, I am going to make sure that we have Pokemon on ours.
Heck yeah, dude.
Michael
Vick wouldn't be a felon on mine.
Nice. Yes.
Gotta catch them all. Okay, sorry.
Exactly. Exactly. All right.
Okay, yes. Joseph Smith says he was once a man, like we are now, correct?
Yes.
Do modern Mormons believe this?
Yes, but
Okay.
there is there's some flex in the joints.
Golly, it's like trying to nail Jello to a wall.
I used that exact expression in my debate with Jacob Hanson, and I think
And it fell
LDS listening
apart.
to this
Yeah,
should at least realize
just 'cause we
how
like
difficult it
Jell-O,
is for
rude.
non-LDS to fairly critique the position
When
because,
they keep changing.
and when you can find LDS who just say, "Oh, well, we don't think that necessarily happened," but yeah. So
Okay, well, here's my question. Okay, let me just have two
yeah,
questions.
okay, go
so
ahead. Sorry.
the God that we are bound to worship,
Mm-hmm.
is it fair to say he was once a man like we are now? According
Yes,
to
the
LDS
Bible
today.
teaches that. It
Yes,
is Jesus
overwhelming.
Christ.
Okay,
Overwhelming.
so my next question, was he once a sinner?
That is a good question. This is one of
No,
the things
he was
that came up
perfect.
in the kind of dialogue
Like,
so before the actual debate.
That's not hard.
And I
There
guess
was-
what I'm
That's
asking
literally
is, what does
the good news. That's the story of the Bible, is that Jesus left his throne above and came down, became a man, died for us so that we can get to the throne above.
Yeah.
Joe, we
I mean,
don't
well-
we don't disagree on this. You read the same Bible I do.
Well, and the thing is, like, what on earth does he think is Jesus means in Revelation chapter 3? Right? Like, let me pull this up here.
Oh, that agitates me so much. that
Uh-huh.
It's like, oh, they believe that God came. Dude, it's literally Jesus.
No, it absolutely is. Absolutely is. So let me pull this up here. Revelation 3. Starting in verse 21, to the one who conquers, I will give a place with me on my throne, just as I myself conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne.
Yeah, that is the whole story of
Like-
the New Testament specifically.
Right.
Is that he comes down, he leaves where he didn't have to. He comes down to save the people he didn't have to save. And he says, you know what? I'm going to live your life so that you can live your life like my life.
Mhm.
That's the whole story.
Right.
And so it's like when you say something like this, and you're like, oh, Mormons, they did it. It's like, dude, it's the same story that you follow. It's crazy to me.
Not sure why that did that. Not sure why it still has the thing here. I'm not sure, but whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
it's okay. Let's keep
yeah,
going.
all the technical issues. All right, we'll bring this up here. Well, at least we passed the half-hour mark.
Yeah.
At least.
I'll have to limit my rebuttals to 30 seconds apiece.
We'll see if we can.
does official LDS sources say, even if they're mutable, and then what apologists?
So, to
today say?
my knowledge, this is not something that the church has taken on head on, because it raises all these questions of, does he have human parents? Does he have, not just who is his God, but like does God have an
They're
uncle?
going to use an Aaron Shaw.
Is there like a heavenly
argument
great
here in a
uncle
little
that we
bit.
could be? And sure, we're not to have anything to do with him, but like, why not? If we're being invited into the family of God and we're ontologically the same as God, because this is an actual point that I think is very important. Talking to people who come from an LDS background, they really like the idea that we are not ontologically different than God. Now, we would say
Correct.
this is a huge difference. This is the difference between the boxcar and the engine car. This is the infinite difference between the uncreated creator of everything and his creation. Like, even if the author inserts himself into the story, he is different in kind from the characters created by the author. But
Except
they
Scripture
reject
teaches this.
that difference
There
because they
is
feel
no
a closer
difference
intimacy thinking of
between
God as being
The author
one
and the
of us.
creator in this and the creation in this book.
and us being
Know
one
ye
of
not
whatever
that ye
he
are
is.
the
So
offspring of God?
he doesn't create you.
Right?
He gives you a body, but you have a pre-existing intelligence.
Am I as old as God?
There
And
is
by
no
God, lowercase g.
Yeah.
I'm as old as
Oh
you're
my gosh.
infinitely old.
The mocking
You're
that Matt
uncreated,
is
and that's
doing
Something
here.
Mormons teach today.
Yeah.
It's even a point that they will use against Christians and say, you've got this problem of evil because the creation exists here without its consent. Everyone who's ever created by God did not consent to be created, and so therefore God is morally responsible for the evils in the world. Whereas in Mormonism, God's not morally responsible for the evils in the world because he's just kind of powerless too.
We got to give their
Okay.
God a different.
No. No. Here's the answer to the problem of evil, because he was half right. He got it right when he talked about like the Trinitarian
Yes.
creatio ex nihilo.
I was this close to being like, I agree with that, and then
And then right on the dime, like, geez, the issue here is that God respects agency. Because with the problem of evil, it goes deeper than this. Because in order for, God would need to be responsible because he was the creator of it. It's his responsibility. It's his creation. So then God, by the aspects of creatio ex nihilo, the problem of evil would be that God is not only the author and finisher of all that is good and holy, but also the creator and distributor of all that is evil and
Horrible.
deplorable.
Yeah. Well, that's like saying, okay, so I didn't choose to come down to earth. If I didn't learn about God while I was down here, and I didn't do the things that were our salvific works, I'm destined for hell. I didn't choose any of that. That would mean that God basically is like, you get the crap end of the stick. See ya.
Yep.
It's like, where is that loving and just God? That's not fair at all. That's not loving at all.
No.
And so that drives me nuts when people no, of course, it comes down to agency. And we believe that we chose to come down here, and our actions, it's not God's fault if someone does something evil. It's our fault. It's the person's fault. We used our agency to do that. And God is all powerful, but the one thing he won't stop is us from using our own agency.
Well, and that's the major difference. It's not that God's powerless to do that. It's that he doesn't want to. He won't.
It is outside of what his plan is. It is outside of the whole. If he intervened every single time that we wanted to use our free agency for wrong, right? And again, it's not that he can't. If it's going to be something that will hinder his work to the point where it would interrupt his plan, like look at Paul, for example, right? Saul to Paul. That's kind of divine intervention, right? But if he did that with every single thing that was ever, every time you stole a candy bar from the grocery store or whatever, it's like that's besides the point. You wouldn't have to fear correction and choosing him out of faith, because every time you're wrong, you would be instantly corrected and you wouldn't have to worry.
Right. Well, and even then, we even see instances, not just in the biblical text, but also in the Book of Mormon, where people have had these like miraculous angelic experiences and yet still turn the other way. I mean, Laman and Lemuel saw an angel.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that.
And like they had these experiences and yet they still turned away. Like these God intervening, yes, it happens, and yes, it's probably in the most dramatic of circumstances, but that still doesn't mean that someone's agency is somehow taken away from them. Yep. Like that, it doesn't work that way. Sorry.
Different name, so we know what we're talking about. Like Jeff or something.
Odin, or yeah. I mean, because it is much similar to some of the pagan conceptions of God.
Yeah.
Where you have gods that are demiurges or architects.
Tell our viewers what kolob is and if it's still taught and where
so
it is.
So this is the idea
about face.
As we were talking about this planet being the one.
Because I think they started to realize, like, wait, we're digging ourselves a hole here.
Populated
100%
by God, but him being from another one. So that raises all these questions of where is God's planet, and is it in the cosmos? And particularly if God is material, how does that work? Is there, like, if we took a rocket ship far enough, could we
could we high to Kolob?
It almost
You're
seems
almost
like
there,
if the
buddy.
Big Bang Theory is true, it might disprove
That's right.
Mormonism.
That's right. I think that is actually correct. That if creation has a beginning, if time has a beginning, then some of these claims don't seem to work. And if there's
again,
how
it's that
the Big Bang
appeal to
happens,
creatio ex nihilo, which is a Greek philosophical
then
concept.
it becomes very clear that we're dealing with a species of atheism, a very colorful species of atheism, a spiritually rich species of atheism. But
what's bananas to me is the Mormons accuse the church, that might be the wrong word, of falling into a great apostasy.
Yes.
But just from the little you've said in our interview today, it seems like I would have more reason to say Mormonism has fell into a great apostasy, because from what I'm hearing, and again, I might be wrong and you can correct me because I know you want to be fair, that the difference between Joseph Smith and the early prophets
and now they shifted again
seems very, very, very different in its doctrines.
Notice something here. They started, like, Matt, again, that whole about face that you talked about earlier. Dude, like, tell me about Kolob.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
Kolob.
Hey, golly, dude. It's just like, okay, so I'm going to limit myself here because I know we got to get through this. But, like, you can't, that was like the worst. That was like squirrel, like ADHD, takes
Right.
one to know one. That was a crazy transition. But to then go into immediate that now we're talking about like collab. What are we? Where is the goalpost here? What are we trying to accomplish right now? It's just like,
well, and Joe didn't even establish what collab is.
no, it's just anyway. Sorry.
Like, long and the short of it, collab is a star. It's not the planet. It's a star.
Yeah, it's the planet at which God lives. And like the Big Bang Theory, like, dude, you're telling me that in Genesis, when God says, and let there be light, it wouldn't be a violent explosion of everything that he would ever want to just start going?
Right.
Ugh,
Like,
anyway,
gosh, okay.
continue.
Yeah, I would say this. So give the task of trying to interpret with a hermeneutic of continuity.
Yeah.
Both to Mormonism in the 19th century and Mormonism in the 21st century, and then Christianity in the 1st century and Christianity in the 3rd century. And it's much easier to see how Christians in the 3rd century are part of the same religion.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's almost like prophets and apostles are called to help direct the direction of the church for the days that they're in. Weird. What a weird concept.
I don't think either Matt or Joe realizes that none of the original 12 or any of the lesser apostles, if they want to call them that, would even recognize the secondary apostles. Right. But like, I don't think they'd even realize that they would not recognize the church as it was in the 3rd or 4th or 5th on down the line. Like, this is not what we left you.
No. Well,
and you all deserve a collective slap across your faces for screwing everything up.
I am 100% certain that if Paul were here today, he would be writing letters like mad to these churches, bro.
Well, no, like have you seen that meme of, like, if Paul were around, he'd write a letter to the church in America. The church in America was the letter to the church in America was Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
I mean,
crazy.
Crazy to think about. Because when you think about it too, like, what really were the supposedly different doctrines that Joseph Smith brought? That Paul brought.
Like, that's the thing is, and I highlight this again, like, not to shamelessly keep plugging myself here, but in that Galatians 1:8 episode that I do with Ward Radio that just premiered tonight, I use that as kind of the inner reverse, because once you can show, like, hey, dude, the Trinity that you're talking about is not what Paul believed. And so when you start telling us that we teach another gospel, right, you're teaching another gospel. So who does that mean should be accursed? Like, and so you need to just get back on course here. Like, you're assuming that the gospel of the Trinity that you're teaching is the one that is biblical that Paul taught. And I don't buy that argument. And I lay that out pretty clear, Anyway, so it's just like, you guys, you're assuming that everything that you have said is absolutely and I get it. Like, that's their church and they believe it. So I'm not going to say that they don't have any right to do that, because like they can say the same thing about us. But it's like, at the end of the day, dude, then have that open discussion with us. And you tried with Jacob and it just went so poorly. And so I don't know. Again, I'm not impressed with the arguments right now. I'm not impressed with the rebuttals. It's just like throwing out what is something crazy that there isn't a lot of information on that Mormons believe, and let's hammer that. Let's hammer collab. Let's hammer Adam God theory. Let's hammer. It's just like, why don't you actually pick something that is firm, set, and in our doctrine that we teach in Sunday school, and like, let's talk about that. But they won't do it.
They don't want to, because they know they lose.
Because they know
that they don't have a leg to stand on.
This is my open thing that I have told everybody on all my socials is, look, I thoroughly believe that the church has every answer that you could you could throw whatever you want at me. I may not even know the answer, but I'm sure there is one that the church has that will logically and by faith be a rebuttal to whatever you say. And so that's been my goal, is like, find me something that I haven't been able to deal with yet, and then we can go from there. But if you want to come have this conversation with us, like, use the Bible. We love the Bible. We're not like, I don't think it's a flex when people are like, wait till I'll Bible bash the Mormons. Like, dude, we love the Bible. Like, we follow the Bible too. Like, statistically, we study it more than any other religion. So,
Right.
anyway,
Well, we know
That's
it
just-
more than any other religion. I mean, and at least Joe
Right.
was willing to acknowledge that. Like, they're great at pulling up scripture, chapter, verse, and things like that. A lot better than the weekend. Great. But the thing is, though, that should explain why, for whatever reason, you feel like you have to appeal to philosophy as opposed to the words of Christ and the apostles.
And shouldn't that give a little bit of credit to, like, maybe they know what they're saying? That's like the equivalent is like, say, Michael Jordan. You're like, yeah, Michael Jordan, he's really good at shooting threes, but I don't really think he understands the game of basketball.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, maybe you haven't ever seen him play, but if you look on paper and he's put in more gym hours and more jump shots and more like, he's probably going to know a thing or two about the sport. Like, anyway. All right, let's keep going.
All right, let's keep going. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, talking a little bit more about his beef with Jacob Hanson and the actual debate there.
Here we go.
Let's get the tallies going here, because he's going to be.
I'm at 2 so far.
Yeah, this entire section is called Jacob Hanson and Shifting Mormon Apologetics. So
Let's play it.
To us, and it's so confusing because one of the things that one of the earlier presidents taught, and this was not like an official teaching, but he gave a talk in which he basically said, "Is Catholics
going back to Adam God."
And so there is a kind of bifurcated view that many LDS have, where they say, okay, well, either the Catholic claim is true or the Mormon claim is true, because you need some leader who has universal jurisdiction, who has the keys of Peter, who is a successor to Peter. And the only two claimants to that are Pope Leo and the LDS president. And since the Catholic Church has gotten all this stuff wrong, it can't be them, so therefore we win by default. Right. That's kind of the way the argument works.
Or also by
in my debate with
seeing
Jacob
our
Hanson,
fruits,
he was
but
operating within that framework. But if you don't come from that framework, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Because it's assuming certain things have to be true about the leader. But the only reason we believe those things are true about the leader of the church is because of claims that Jesus makes about Peter, for instance. And if those claims Jesus makes about Peter are true, then the papacy is true and the Great Apostasy is false. Now, here's what I mean. One of the reasons we would say, the successor of Peter, like you need to have the keys and all this, is because Jesus gives Peter the keys and promises the gates of hell won't overcome in Matthew 16. Well, you can't point to Matthew 16 as proof that you need this and then simultaneously say, we lost the keys, because the whole point of that passage from a Catholic reading.
Okay, here's the problem with that, right? And again, this is where Joe is going to air out all of his grievances. This is very much sour grapes time.
Bro, okay. But if anyone has not heard this argument before, that's watching this right now, gates are meant to keep people out, not in. They're meant to keep people out.
So, this is the kind of thing here that we're looking at. So, like, he's appealing to Matthew 16, which, typical, Catholic Orthodox argument. I get it. But let's kind of look at everything here. Let's pull this up, because what it actually says a lot. Because like he's pulling out like the gates of hell will not prevail against it, but the actual Greek says the gates of Hades.
Yeah,
they're Jesus gives
Sheol or something in Hebrew.
Yeah, Sheol.
Yeah, whatever.
Sheol in Hebrew. And so like here's the thing, like they will look at, like, for instance, when Peter says, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God," Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed it to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it." They think that the context here is that because Peter was the one who speak, that Jesus comes up and says, "On this rock I will build my church."
Yeah, it couldn't possibly be the fact that the Lord revealed that unto him, right?
Right. Like, that's the entire thing. So, like, that's not the context of what's happening here. Just looking at the context here, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Well,
There's
we
also
have
a comma.
yeah, exactly. You are Peter, and we actually have like the Greek for Petros and Petra. Okay, these are two different subjects. Now, the common Catholic retort would be, well, what language did they speak? They spoke in Aramaic and
This is
Cephas or Kephas.
You said retort, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right.
I know that I am not above insults.
No,
All right.
It was just good.
I am not above insults, as Carden, accurately pointed out earlier. And you know what, Carden? Like I will fully own that. I am not above it. So, then again, neither was Jesus. But the thing is, with what we're seeing here, this is two different subjects, and they will often say like, well, they spoke Aramaic, and so this would have been a transcription from the Aramaic. Okay, do we have that Aramaic transcript? No. Okay, then this is what we have to go off of. So we have two separate subjects, Petros and Petra. In other words, Jesus is saying, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. I tell you, you are Peter, or the small rock chipped from the larger rock. And on this larger rock, I will build my church." And the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. What is the larger rock?
I'm chewing. But yeah, Jesus and Revelation would be my two guesses.
Yeah, so Jesus would not be the rock.
Well, then Revelation
Paul
would be, right?
Yeah, Revelation would be, yes, the foundation of apostles and prophets. And what is the main function of an apostle and a prophet? To receive revelation from on high to guide the church.
Correct.
The
Amos
church
3:7,
cannot
baby.
function. Yes, exactly. And the church cannot function without a living prophet, without a living oracle. It does not work. You cannot do it. And so the rock that Jesus is talking about is the rock of revelation. This is what we're looking at here. Going back up to this. Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. In other words, the gates of the land of the dead. This is the reason why this other question was rattling around in my head, and I decided to go with the other one instead, where the gates of the land of the dead will not prevail against the church. If what Joe is about to say here, and the common Catholic argument about like, well, then Jesus lied or God lied. No, by that logic, death overcame Christ. It didn't matter that he resurrected. He still died.
Mm-hmm. That's the point.
So,
that's the thing that they always seem to leave out.
Like, there's no other explanation for this. And so by their very logic, would that not also mean that death overcame Christ, regardless of the fact that he resurrected and that he overcame death that way? Christ eventually conquered death, but he had to die first, just as the church overcame the gates of Hades. The gates of Hades did not prevail, but it still had to fall first.
We kicked those dates down, boy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better way to do this. And when I've only very recently made this connection, right? The restoration is a resurrection allegory.
Yo, you're right. 100%.
The restoration of the Church of Jesus Christ mirrors the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The church had to fall away. Authority had to be lost. In other words, the church had to die before it could be resurrected, before it could be restored.
And come back perfected.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you did there. That's a great connection.
Yep. But the thing is, though, is that was the entire purpose behind the debate to begin with. Was there a great apostasy? Not was there a need for a restoration? Not was the church restored? The topic of the debate was, did the church fall into an apostasy? Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and so we're not trying to prove Mormonism. That's not what we're discussing at all.
No, that wasn't the point of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
The point of the debate was, is did the church fall into apostasy? Leaving aside the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, leaving aside the restoration claims, did the original church fall away? And if we read just in the biblical text alone, I mean, not to appeal to sola scriptura or anything like that,
but it sure seems like it.
It seems like it. Why was Revelation only written to the 7 churches?
See, my big thing, and I mean, I know you got it with your minivan life here, but I feel like when Paul was writing these letters, it was literally like a road trip with your kids. Stop pulling your sister's hair. Knock it off. Put the gum down. Right? Why did you open a soda after shaking it? Why are you, like stop. So much was going wrong. That's the whole theme of all of his letters. Right. Is that there's so many issues and Paul can't put out all the fires.
Right. I mean, heck, we see this happening, and it wasn't just with Paul, right? Like Revelation, there's a reason why it's only addressed to the 7 churches.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because each of like all but those 7 had fallen away. Like there were people in those other churches in Antioch, in Rome, that weren't going to John. They knew that John was still around. They still knew them. They went out of their way. Patmos was closer to them in some cases, and yet they still chose to go to other bishops.
Yeah, like Linus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess he was technically the bishop of Rome. So
he was the bishop of Rome at the time, yeah. But the thing is, though, is that like how often, like to Ephesus, shape up. Don't go toward the Nicolaitans, or else your candlestick will be removed from you. Same thing to Smyrna, same thing to Pergamum, same thing to Thyatira, same thing to Philadelphia, and all of the rest of them. Shape up, or your candlestick will be removed. Your authority will be removed.
Yeah, and
we
all
want
this
to
is...
continue to receive that revelation, to have living prophets, to have public revelation. But if you're going to fall away and reject it, then I will not stay with you.
Well, I just laugh because it's like, I don't know. To me, the idea that you can't have a modern day apostles is like wild. It's like, well, Jesus established them. Anyway, that's just another off.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, and again, like in order to make their tradition work, they have to choose to ignore the first 50 to 75 years of tradition and organization within the church.
Yep, but you have to like turn such a blind eye to not even think.
Right.
That it's a possibility that you would still have apostles.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Paul directly says, hey, by the way, we still have apostles and evangelists. And it's like, I don't know, Paul. You're not being very clear.
No, I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's see what else he tries to do here.
Is that this is given in such a way the gates of hell won't overcome. We're not going to lose the keys even for 1,700 years. Even for a day. Like the keys are not going anywhere. The gates of hell won't overcome. So you can't appeal to the common ground to build we both agree you need this kind of leader. We're willing to have it because we don't actually agree. We make similar claims. We don't mean the same thing by successor to Peter. We don't think that the Pope is a prophet in the way that Peter was, receiving ongoing revelation, any of that. So we're using similar language.
How does that make any sense?
So we're meaning different things by it. So it's actually confusing to put things that way. So don't, to any Mormons watching,
if you had modern
don't
prophets,
try to build from that
confusing.
Common ground of saying, well, we know it has to be one of the two of us, because a Catholic is going to say, we don't know it's got to be one of the two of us.
Even if they don't have that dilemma, it's still a common fallacious retort to say, well, what about you?
Right.
But
it is not.
You...
Oh my gosh. This is about holding people to the same standard. You're willing to hold us to one standard, but not hold yourself to that exact standard. I swear, especially with folks like this, if they didn't have double standards, they'd have zero.
Bro, I was going to say, we have been on the what about you side way more than the pointing.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wild take.
But that's the thing. They're trying to cut it off at the pass. Like, you can't point the finger back at us. Yeah, absolutely we can. This is called holding you to the same standard. If you're going to hold us to that standard, you need to hold yourselves to that standard too. And so far, you haven't.
Not well done. That's for sure.
Who doesn't enable you to escape the critique we're currently leveling against you.
Exactly.
It could just be true that we're both wrong.
Right.
Right. So if you want to respond to
Starbase
Joe in the
Golub's comment
comments,
was fire.
instead of saying,
Yeah.
"Well, what about you?" you could try to defend the position with me. You're
Right. Like if you've got like take the Miller rights. We'll take a nice neutral example.
Who are they?
In the 19th century, at the same time Joseph Smith is coming up, there's a lot of these different like strange movements within Protestantism because you have the Great Awakening and the Second Great Awakening.
Right.
You have people who are becoming on fire for God,
Mm-hmm.
but without any formation, without any stable preachers. And then you have these different popular preachers going out there preaching contrary things.
Hence
And
why
Joseph
Joseph
Smith
did
talks
what he
about it.
did.
His family is divided about
Mhm.
which Protestant denomination to follow, and they're preaching against one another. They're preaching all this contradictory stuff. This leads him to conclude that there's a great apostasy. It leads other people to just say, well, why don't we read the Bible for ourselves? And they go invent some new denomination and some new form of Christianity.
Gosh.
So Miller was convinced that Jesus was going to return in 1844. And for those of you listening, he did not. And this is what's called the Great Disappointment.
Anything, Joe. Uh-oh.
And because of that, you
Uh-oh.
have this situation. Now, if someone wanted to critique Miller and say, well, obviously Milleritism is false. You coming back and saying, well, your guys make mistakes too, is a total deflection. It's not an actual logical answer to that problem. Because
It's-
even if
oh,
our guys make
gosh.
mistakes, even if we've followed some false prophet as well, your prophet is then revealed nakedly as a false prophet. Now, he wasn't claiming to be a
Wow.
prophet. He's just a bad reader. of the
Oh,
Bible.
okay.
But
Mhm.
if
He's-
you have
he's
a
going to go
prophet
on the
making a claim
18
that doesn't
argument.
come
There
true,
it is.
obviously disproved,
Yeah, there it is.
that guy's out of the running. That doesn't automatically prove, like, if everything I'm saying about Mormonism is true here, that doesn't prove Catholicism is correct.
Right. Of course.
But if
That was
Catholicism is
the
true,
entire
would-
point of the debate!
I want to get to your debate with Jacob Hanson,
Sure.
but earlier I asked whether the lowercase g God that Mormons say we are bound to worship was once a man like us, and you say they're fine going along with that. And then I asked, was he a sinner? And I think you said,
I believe
have you heard
that he has an exaltation in the sense that he seems to have a redeemer, and he's offering worship. But I don't think this is something the church has taught in any
Oh, they
official
haven't taught.
capacity.
Okay. So if you were
So-
to ask a modern day apologist, they would say we don't have an
And
answer.
you've got people like Blake Ostler who are trying to do things of trying to make a form of
Who's that?
he's a theologian on the LDS side,
Okay.
and he's presenting some stuff that's not mainstream, but is probably becoming bigger. And Jacob Hanson follows him, so you're going to find people like Jacob saying things that I think their parents' generation wouldn't have believed.
Okay.
There is this big shift because look, the internet exists now,
Mm.
and a lot of the claims that people living in
Correct.
this
Oh, I didn't know
generation
that.
believe.
That's the most correct thing
We
you
now
said on
know
that.
those things are false, and they know those things are false. So this is where the give and the joints has kind of worked, where the leadership kind of points in a different direction and says, well, we're not saying that. We didn't mean that when we said great apostasy. We just meant more revelation. We just meant the keys are taken away, the priest is taken away. But there's still a lot of great Christians. And so there you can kind of hollow out the doctrine without just reversing it. Or you can have things that just look like reversals, but you're encouraged to listen to the current president, to listen to ongoing prophets without stopping too much to compare. Well, how does that match up with the things we've been told before?
Wha-
I think your example with the podcast of like the conspiracy theorists is kind of true. Because if you say, well, look, earlier you said this group did it. Now you say this other group did it. Were they working together? Or are you reversing yourself?
He's
But
just
if
bitter
they
that
keep you
Candace
going by
Owens
just saying,
isn't part
oh,
of
we've
the
got all this
Daily
new
Wire anymore.
information.
Yeah.
And unless you stop and say, what you're telling me today doesn't match what you told me a week ago, then you don't notice the contradiction because they can spin a coherent, compelling story until you notice that it doesn't match the story that you were told earlier.
Okay.
And so that's how you want, I mean,
So
this
this is one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring up. The concept here of one of the videos that Jacob Hanson had, because when I saw that, I immediately thought of this video here. Primarily because it's this exact problem that Joe is bringing up. And so we have here Tom McLaughlin, Jacob, and Hayden Carroll talking about a concept called shattered triangles or broken triangles, basically. And this really, I think, kind of helps explain a lot of the issues here.
About before this, you're never like at an end point. In fact, the more I learn, the more I feel like, oh my goodness, I'm just beginning. Like I'm on the front end of learning about this thing. And in my life, especially in the last like 5 or 6 years, I look back every 6 months and I think, oh, I didn't know anything 6 months ago. Like, holy smokes, like I didn't know anything 6 months ago. And so I know for a fact that in 6 months, like next winter, I'm going to look back on this interview saying, why are you even on that podcast? You didn't know anything, like.
well, I hope what we can do is at least get like in this way, what I've found is that it isn't that the things, it's sort of like if you were taught American history in the second grade, you're going to get a story that's true, but it's not the whole story, right? It doesn't include all the richness and the dynamics. And the reality is anytime I say this kind of almost as a preface, just to discussing theology in general, okay? Like the deeper you get, the less clear a lot of things become, okay? There are things within the Christian message that all Christians can agree on. But when you start getting more and more into details, you find that every single one of us at some part, we start to have our own ideas. But those things naturally are, they're the details, they're not, and I think it's okay to theologize and try and sort it out and have our own ideas about what things mean, but always tentatively, always with the understanding that we could be wrong, that we could be corrected, and always, at least for myself, trying to be consistent with the collective witness of both Scripture and living prophets.
Yeah, so like I always give this caveat that if I change change my view tomorrow, like if tear down my understanding and build it back up again, sorry, just how it works, like I'm like if I call you tomorrow and say, hey, I have a different view tomorrow, that could happen. Like
definitely.
Okay, I look at like imagine like if you were born in a house without windows or doors and you never saw outside and the Lord came to you and said, hey, there's big mountains outside your house, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, well, there's big rocks. You're like, I don't even know what a rock is. And he's like, well, there's big triangles. And you're like, oh, I know what a triangle is. And then you like get excited and you build a religion around it. And you go and tell everybody in your house, there's big triangles outside. And then he comes back to you and says, well, they're not really triangles there. And he starts teaching you about what a mountain really is. Well, there's two things you could do. You could get mad and say, well, God just lied to me. Or you could understand that the Lord has to kind of shatter some concepts that you think are airtight in order to give you a fuller vision or picture of what the truth is.
So that I think
good.
was, yeah. And that's the entire concept here. And that's the entire point of living revelation and living prophets and everything. But that's not something that Joe and his paradigm have. That's the issue that they keep coming across. And so when they're trying to say like, oh, well, there's no catechism, they like things that a prophet can say on one aspect can be completely disregard on another. Like, yeah, but that's the issue that we see here with the Catholic Church as well, because there is no living revelation, because there is no direct communication, and heck, no new scripture. All of these errors have crept in to the point where, again, the only way for their tradition to work is if they choose to ignore the organization and the traditions that were established by Jesus Christ and the apostles. There's no other way around that.
Yeah, I agree. It's
true whether you're
what were you gonna say?
No, I agree.
A podcaster, whether you're listening to a suspect in a crime who's given 5 different versions of where they were, you have to step back and say, okay, let me listen to what you're telling me today and see if I can harmonize that with what I was told previously. And if I can't, there's a problem here. It's fine. Like just to be completely clear, it is fine to say you have new pieces of information today you didn't have before. Yep. That is not the objection. It may be that some prophet has some new insight that you didn't have before. That's not a contradiction.
Right.
It is a contradiction if they're just absolutely 180 reversing what happened before and what was taught before as binding doctrine. Now, I'm going to tie up a loose end I left hanging.
There we go.
I said I think Adam God was taught at the highest levels of authority. And I think that you can show that. Now, it wasn't written down in Doctrines and Covenants, so you can find a kind of counter argument, but it was taught in this official way. It was part of the secret temple induction ceremonies. And so we know this for a fact. It's very hard to get around any
We
of
already
this.
talked about this.
And the first way people tried to get around it is you would have later LDS prophets saying, oh, well,
I love that we say we
maybe
know
this
this
was
for a fact,
misquoted or misheard.
Yeah,
but
for
you
a
have
fact.
other LDS future presidents, people who were not presidents of the church at the time, but were present and wrote about it in their own journals. So we know from the private writings from well-respected Mormon leaders that this is absolutely what Brigham Young was teaching, because they wrote about it in their diaries. And so just as a sheer matter of fact, this is what he was teaching. We can't get around that. You can leave the what level of authority question to one side and say, if somebody believes that you should worship Adam, that person is an idolater. That person is not a true prophet. You can't teach idolatry and be a true prophet. So Brigham Young is a false prophet. Whatever else may be true, even if he's just privately teaching we should worship Adam, fine. He's privately teaching idolatry, but he's doing it in the tabernacle, very publicly declaring everyone, as a matter of salvation, must be an idolater.
We already
this
went
is
over the
damnably
issues
false
with the Journal of Discourse.
And so whatever you
That's
think of
the
Joseph
problem.
Smith, you should at least be able to say, well, his successor, Brigham Young, is clearly a false prophet. And
Is this what the breakaways from the original Mormon Church point to? Do they point to
I
that?
think he said all sorts of stuff, even before this. I mean, that was,
Oh,
I want to say this is 1852. So this is like 8 years after. He'd been saying all sorts of things. He claimed that Joseph Smith taught this doctrine. And a lot of LDS today would say, no, he didn't. So Brigham Young's also apparently lying about what Joseph Smith was privately teaching.
So Mormons, do Mormons today agree with you that Brigham Young in this sense taught idolatry?
They would say the Adam God doctrine is false.
Okay.
They don't explicitly call it idolatry. It's difficult to see how
I
it
would
doesn't
go
meet
as far
either
to say that
definition
Brigham
of
never
idolatry.
actually taught it.
And so I think that is something worth reckoning. They would just say, well, this was never officially taught. This was just someone's theological opinion, and theological opinions can be wrong. But it's not just that it's wrong. It's that it's idolatry.
Yeah, if Mormon prophets
and
taught
paying
false
for
things,
my
including
sins to
idolatry
my
in the
priest
past,
when I'm going to go to
and
Vegas
if
for
Mormon
the week,
prophets don't necessarily have the gift of infallibility,
that's what I'm saying. Like, pause it for just a second. That's what I'm saying.
Of a
I'm not even saying that you can't repent and like make amends with that, but to say that like, oh well, Brigham Young talked this one time, so therefore all the Mormons, they got to be wrong.
Right.
Okay, explain to me why Martin Luther even exists.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What were the 95 theses?
Yeah, you want to go over? Actually, that's only in German that I have, but I have a whole book about all 95 of them because I happen to be Martin Luther's great grandson times 14. Hey, I look just like him. If you see some portraits of him, dude, oh, it's crazy. But no, but like that's my point though. Is like how do you say that like, oh, the church was wrong, or one leader said one thing wrong one time, so therefore everything else needs to get tossed out?
Right.
It's just
right.
just
like
not-
it makes no sense. Like, and that's the entire thing. Like, why did the schism in the 11th century occur between the East and the West?
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Filioque? You want to talk about the other catechisms that were there that caused these schisms? I'm fairly certain that if we were to dig into history enough, we'd probably even find more schisms. Could you
imagine if the Mormons were so advantageous and so apt to dig into every other history's religion to just brutally bash them in the head with it? You know how much damage? Like, it's so good that our people are taught to be counterpunchers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, anyway. The thing is, though, is that like we don't have a counter cult ministry at all.
No, we don't. We don't teach people how to counter the Catholics and what to do if you encounter a Protestant.
Right.
What we do, our teaching on that is invite them to church and remind them that God loves them. Be friends with them.
To read the Book of Mormon.
Kindness. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. Like there are times, and I will say this: I don't agree with Jacob Hanson on everything. His adoration of Blake Ostler, I do not get, but I do agree with his with the separation of a private ministry versus public advocacy. And so, like, when I handle things in private, and I actually did a lot more studying about this on my own and things like that as well, like, there are times where we do need to have that John 4 ministerial approach, especially in private settings. The woman at the well. Who are our women at the well that we minister to? Meanwhile, we also have to be willing to take those public advocacy moments and address the modern day Pharisees, like the morons over here, to essentially what Jesus Christ did in what Joseph Smith called the Savior's meekest moment. Oh, you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites.
Brood of vipers.
Brood of vipers. You are whitewashed tombs and inwardly are full of rotting bones. Like that was considered the Savior's meekest moment. And so if we are to do the same thing, being meek doesn't mean being small or gentle or lowly or anything like that. It is a strength.
It means
it is to be strong.
Having a sword but not having to pull it out.
Right. Unless absolutely necessary.
Right.
It's kind of like that same that old saying. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yep.
And that's the entire thing. I mean, that's been yours and my purpose, and the entire time that we've been doing this online.
Yep.
That we need to be those warriors in the garden, but we still need to be warriors.
Yep. And again, this is you're setting me up so perfect here, because another shameless plug. Another one of the things that Cardin and I discussed on an episode that's going to come out here, I'm sure, soon. But we discussed that there's a difference between peacemakers and peacekeepers, and you need both.
Yes.
Right. And so I'm under the impression, like, I tend to be more of a peacemaker, meaning I'm willing to cut through the crap to make sure that we get to a point where we can have a good discussion, and then allow the nurturing to grow and to have those kind of relationships. And then you got to have people who are peacekeepers that their sole purpose is to just take care of who's there, to minister, to do all of the lovey-dovey stuff, which I 100% am an advocate for. But some people just don't have an aggressive bone in their body, and they can nurture and teach and sustain and maintain better than I ever could. But my whole job, and the reason why, guys like us do this, is we're more of the stripling warriors, and we have some members that are more the anti-Nephi Lehites or the Ammonites. Right. Both are very important, and both did missionary work in a unique way. But you have to kind of go with what's more of your skill set. And for every sword, there is a shield. Right.
And kind of to build off of that, I think there may have been a point in time where we needed the niceness culture that ultimately is biting us in the butt right now.
Sure. Yeah.
We needed that. And so now we need people who are willing to stand up. It's like, okay, we were nice. You can see that we are not going to harm you.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that we're going to allow you to walk all over us. We are not doormats.
Like, think about our history as a church. We come from like the Porter Rockwell style church, right? Where when Brigham came through, dude, no one wanted to mess with us because we were constantly fighting on all sides. And so, yeah, we would just be like, dude, I'm a freaking Mormon. Like, come at me. I'll crush you in physical. I'll crush you spiritually. Maybe we're a little harsh back then, but now we're at a point where we haven't had to do that. Now we've gotten to the point where we're too nice. And I don't mean kind and compassionate. I mean nice, where we don't want to offend. We don't want to like, oh, I guess you can just hate on me and I'll just, look the other way.
Far too interested in people, please.
Correct. We're trying to fit in with the Protestant crowd. We're trying to be more of these American nationalist Christian whatever, right? Where we're being less bold about why we are the restored church. And so I think there needs to be middle ground. Like I'm not going to get too far into it. Like, you'll watch the episode on Ward Radio. It's all coming out. But I use the example of Ammon and King Lamoni and King Lamoni's dad. right?
Mm-hmm.
Like King Lamoni's dad gets, Ammon basically says, hey, we just want to get my bros, and King Lamoni wants to worship, and his dad's like, no. And that he basically tries to negotiate until finally the old king, I call him Pops Lamoni, just pulls out his sword and is like, oh, I'll take you out and my son, right? And then Ammon beats him to a pulp to the point where he could kill him, take his kingdom, establish Lamoni to do whatever. And instead he goes, hey, now do you see, like, I've taken you out. Are you at least willing to hear us out to why your son's chosen this? And so I use that as an example. Is sometimes you have to, you can do all the niceness, but eventually you're going to have to pull out your sword, defend yourself, make sure that the threat is neutralized. And then from there, that's where the missionary moment happens.
Right.
I disemboweled your argument. I've shown you now the reason why I think the way that I do. Hear me out when I tell you why. And that's where the real growth happens.
And a more modern example, have you ever seen the movie The Fighting Preacher?
Oh, I have seen bits and pieces of it because my family really watches it. I personally have never sat down for the whole way through.
Okay. Well, it's based on the true story of Willard Bean and he and his wife's 20-year mission to Palmyra shortly after the church bought the Smith farm. And Willard had this penchant for amateur boxing. And, but they moved to Palmyra. They're trying to make nice with their neighbors, but they're all like, you Mormons, we want you out of here kind of deal. And then finally, after just years and years of this kind of abuse, he's like, you know what? I'm going to have a little exhibition match. Who wants to beat up the Mormon? And instead of them beating him up, he beats them up. It's all regulation. They're in the ring and everything like that.
Shout out Kawhi Thompson.
Right. But then after which he and his family start helping out. They're listened to more. And that by the end of their mission, again, 20 years of doing this, of trying to not just maintain the Smith family farm, but also acquiring the Hill Cumorah, along with other church history sites. And they left in the 1930s as some of the most beloved members of Palmyra, New York.
Yep.
Because Willard Bean was willing to show, hey, I'm not a doormat, but I'm also not above helping my neighbor when he needs help.
Yep.
That's the thing. He had to show them that he wasn't going to take any guff, and then they were willing to listen.
Well, and to go with that, and this is more like MMA experience from my life, but some of the best friendships that I like, my who I would consider arguably one of, I don't know if I have one specific best friend. There's probably like 3 people that are in that running, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of those guys has been a lifelong training partner of mine, right? And like we've almost killed each other. Like, there's been times where if he didn't let go, I would die. Like he choked me out. There's times where I would have taken his head off. Right. Like, and then, but like you have these engagements and then you can go out and get a burger after. There's something about the mutual respect when you engage in combat with someone.
Right.
And then afterward, even if you hate each other, you're like, all right, like, I get it. I get where you're coming from. I don't know how to describe it, but like, and I find that to be the same in apologetics and sticking up for the church is you may not make someone see eye to eye, but you're at least going to get the respect of them.
Right.
And then you'll be able to be cordial about your day. You're no longer animosity. There's no more animosity towards you. There's disagreements, but it's not animosity.
Absolutely. I mean, like on my channel, like a couple months ago, I had a live discussion with a Protestant brother who obviously didn't agree. We didn't agree on much theologically, and it got heated. I would encourage everyone here to go back and rewatch that conversation I had with Rudy. But he and I will still periodically email each other. Like he'll still pop into my comments every now and again and say like, yeah, no, Monty, you're being wrong. Like, but the thing is though, is that like we came away with that with a bit of more of a mutual respect. We both ended that discussion. Like, you know what? This was a lot of fun. Let's see if we can do this again sometime. Hasn't happened yet, but who knows? We've both gotten busy. But that's the thing, though, is that like when we're able to hash things out, either with our fists or with our words, but not get to the point where we feel like we're being personally attacked in a way. Like that I think is the circumstance here. Like there are plenty of people who, like, on TikTok I've come across who, like, they absolutely despise me, and you know what? Fine, whatever. But then there are others who are like, you know what? There's a bit of a newfound respect there. And honestly, those are the kind of the best conversations, despite how heated they can get.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree with you. I think you put in the effort, like if you put in the effort to understand someone, and I've been guilty of this. I've realized this too for a big portion of my life, is I always would just focus so much upon like my religion, my religion. And it's like I've taken the time to really try and understand other people's religions and their positions more. And I found that the more that I do that, it's a better conversation. It doesn't mean that I'm giving in and like conceding the agreement or the argument, but by understanding, I can be like, hey, like I can steel man people a lot better. And I think that leads to a lot better conversations personally.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think we probably should end it here. There's still about half an hour left of the video, but we've been going for almost 3 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But there's still so much more to talk about here. But like the last little bit before they get into the Orthodox bit is basically talking about like, well, here's why all these Mormons are leaving the church. So they're not. They're really not. But honestly, like, go ahead and watch the rest of the video and everything. The long and the short of it is that I still stand by what I how, like, the thumbnail and everything like that. Even we've had some people in the comments like, this is, the thumbnail and the title is a bit whack, man. It's like, no, but one, it's effective, and two, it's true.
You're here.
You're here, ain't you?
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that, like, again, it is true. Joe Heschmeyer is whining because he is upset about having lost that debate. And the thing is that I can understand it because this is directly connected to his livelihood.
Sure. And I do think that, like, because here's the thing is I try to play the devil's advocate as much as I can and understand where people are coming from. But I was at the debate, right? We were there, we saw it. And there wasn't like a time, there was a time where I thought maybe it was neutral on one of like the cross-reference portions of the debate. Where I don't really think there was a clear winner. But other than that, like, I just didn't see Joe able to make an argument or stay on target or anything like that. And so, again, I think he's very knowledgeable, and I think he'd be great to talk to about this kind of stuff. But from what I've seen right now and what I've seen from him is it seems like he's trying to do like a save the face kind of tour, maybe a little bit, where he's just kind of going on and talking about it. And I don't know. I don't know the full story, right? So full credit there. But I do think that there's a lot of arguments I think he should have had, a lot of discussions that he should have had, and he just straight up avoided them. So
right. No, absolutely. Anyway, we'll go ahead and end it there. Have a good night, everybody. Again, we'll take care. Subscribe to Dalton here on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. He has a channel set up.
Yep,
Nothing
it's
there
up.
yet.
No videos there yet, but yeah, I appreciate you for having me on, Mont.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Anytime. Anyway, have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you later.